Good morning. This is a public hearing of the Chatham Conservation Commission being held on Wednesday, June 9th, 2021, in accordance with the provisions of the Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Town of Chatham Wetlands Protection Bylaw, Chapter 272. It's being broadcast live on Channel 18 and recorded for the archives. Today's hearing is being conducted by remote video conference pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency orders prohibiting the gathering of large groups of people. Every effort's been made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. The agenda and copies of documents for review today have been posted on the town website. To all participants, I'm just checking. Everybody has done what we asked and have muted themselves. If you haven't, please take a minute now and check, unless you're a commission member, in which case don't mute yourself. If you're on the phone, you mute yourself by just pressing *6 and press *6 again to unmute. I know we have a number of folks who are attending today who want to comment and ask questions. So a reminder to them that the way we do this is that we start with questions from commission members first. Because we have so many now and we're on this difficult to use platform sometimes, we're going to use the raise hand function as we've been doing for the last several hearings. So members who wish to ask a question of the representatives, just please press the raise hand function and we will call on you in turn. For those on the phone, once the commission members have asked questions, we will open it up to questions and comments from other participants. You also should use the raised hand function. Press that button and wait to be recognized, and then you will have the floor to speak. As we have been doing, all votes today will be by roll call. And to start with, so that we have a record of the quorum of commission members attending today, I'm now going to ask each member to indicate their presence on the call by stating their name. Commissioner Rawls.
Rawls present.
Delvecchio.
Delvecchio present.
Kitts.
My microphone's stuck.
It's on though. You're good.
Oh, okay, good. I'm here.
Just don't talk out loud. Well, yeah. Commissioner Clark.
Clark here.
Commissioner Latin.
Latin present.
Associate Commissioner Francisconi.
Francisconi present.
Terry Sullivan.
Sullivan present.
I know how that feels. Mary Sullivan.
Mary Sullivan present.
All right, we are all here. We have a quorum established. So as the chair, I'm Janet Williams. I'm opening the hearing at 9:03 a.m. And Nikki, I think we're ready for the first item on the agenda.
All right, first up we have 0 Northgate Road. This is a request for determination of applicability, 0 Northgate Road, Lot 2, Robert Polucci, map 11I, parcel 14G2, proposed house, septic, driveway, utilities, and associated site improvements. And I believe I'm sharing the plan.
Yep, you are. Good. Okay, who is here today for the applicant?
Should be Brad Malo, I believe.
Let's see. May well be muted since I told everybody to mute.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Brad Malo, are you muted or are you on the, you're indicated as muted?
I'm Bud Flanagan calling in from Virginia.
Okay.
This is Brad Malo. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You'd speak up a little bit. You're a little muffled, but yes.
All right, we'll work that out.
Okay.
I am Brad Malo from Coastal Engineering Company, and also on the line is Bob Porlucci, who is the applicant.
Okay. All right, you can proceed, Mr. Malo.
Okay, this property is a vacant lot. It's been in the family since 1981. It is located to the south side of Northgate Road. The property directly across the street from this vacant land is house number 54. That house sits up near the street on fairly level ground, and entirely on the rear side of the house, across the street, there is a wetland, and in fact, on 3 sides of that house, there is a wetland. Therefore, the wetland that envelops this house number 54 across the street, actually, with the resource area boundaries and buffer zone, impacts this particular property that you have before you today. A portion of the 100-foot buffer zone from the wetland across Northgate Road nearly clips a portion of the front corner of the easterly side of the property, and it is a little more impactful. It covers about 50 feet of the front portion, the front right portion of the lot, or the westerly front corner of the lot. This site is somewhat influenced by the buffer zone from that wetland. Also, that wetland opposite the street is is identified as a river. So our drawings indicate a 200-foot riverfront area impacting this property, and ultimately, it's really only the front third of the vacant lot that is within the riverfront area, and those delineations have been noted on the drawing. The project involves construction of a single-family home with a driveway that would run from Northgate Road and then up a gently sloping to moderate sloping lot up to the house location. The house location is located about 235 feet from the river, so it's completely out of the Commission's jurisdiction. However, we have filed a request for determination as the proposed driveway must run through the area of jurisdiction coming off of Northgate Road and into the house site. A very limited portion of the driveway falls within, in fact, some of the grading and clearing for the driveway would fall marginally within the 100-foot buffer. And then about 50 feet of the driveway falls within the 200-foot riverfront area. We've designed and proposed a sewage disposal system that is completely outside of the riverfront area, and only the limited grading and clearing around the edge of the sewage disposal system and the grading and clearing necessary for the driveway construction would fall within either the buffer or the 200-foot riverfront area. The project was staked on the ground. There are a number of trees on the property of varying sizes, and there's about approximately 6 to 8 pine trees that would need to be removed as part of the driveway installation and for the septic system installation along the fringe of the 200-foot riverfront area. And along with that, there's about 4 oak trees, and I'm referring to trees that of caliper in the order of about 6 to 10 inch diameters. Those would need to be removed for the driveway installation. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you. I have a note here that says that the agent, Nicole Smith, has been in contact with you guys and had asked for an updated plan showing the limit of work.
Yes, that's correct. Follow-up emails with the agent indicated, I think that we would go through this process and flesh out any issues that may exist, but we're glad to provide a copy with a delineated work limit and, as appropriate, sedimentation barrier. Although in this particular case, since everything is opposite side of the street from the resource area, we don't think it's needed, but we're amenable to doing that if the commission so wishes.
Okay. All right. And is there an indication, I mean, I can see by the way, well, I can't really tell from the plan. So what is the material proposed for the driveway?
The client has preferred to go with a paved driveway. And as I said, 50 feet of which is within the within the riverfront area. This is because the driveway begins gently sloping and then more of a moderate slope up and through winter months and plowing and so forth. We don't think that it is appropriate in this case for maintenance purposes to go with a permeable driveway. There is a there is a grass shoulder along the edge of Northgate Road. So any surface runoff could be directed into the grass area or swaled as appropriate for dissipating surface runoff.
Is there any consideration given to putting a drain at the bottom of the driveway to catch any of that runoff?
That could be done. There is a catch basin in Northgate Road a little bit to the west of this. The driveway location comes in about at the high point, very subtly, mind you, but there is a slight high point in Northgate Road, and the surface water drains a little bit to the west, where just out of the view of the plan there's a catch basin. So the de minimis amount of additional runoff we would expect would be able to be handled by that.
All right, there's some commissioners with questions, so let me start with Joe Kitts.
I'm an abutter, so I'm going to have to recuse myself from this, voting on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Latman.
I live on Uphill, which is off of Northgate, but I do have a couple of questions. Is there any tree removal, not for the driveway, not for the septic, that's within the 200 that is to put in a lawn or anything? I mean, what are the plans for the rest? It's a very wooded property.
In my communication with the agent as well as with the client, we've advised the client, and he's consented to the fact that any kind of lawn area would be confined to the house and outside of the 200-foot riverfront area.
That's good. And also, I do worry if you didn't have any drain at the end of the driveway. I think it will go partially across the road to that other property. I know that there's a slight hill, but I do think that I walk this area several times a day, and I have seen how the property across the street does get some of the runoff from the way the property is. It's just an observation. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Bob Rawls.
Yeah, I'm looking at the project, looking at the plan, and thinking about what a request for determination is. This does not strike me as the appropriate vehicle for it. You have already said you're taking out 6 to 8 pines, some of which are sizable, and you're talking about having a non-permeable driveway. You have sort of a verbal promise to not have lawn within our area of jurisdiction, but we can't enforce any of that with an RDA. We can't attach conditions to an RDA, and so once if the RDA were approved, then that's sort of the end of our involvement. So it just doesn't seem to be appropriate or called for me. To me, we need to be able to attach order of conditions to what is affected within our jurisdiction, and the only way we can do that is through an NOI. And that's what I had to say.
Thank you. Nikki, do you have any questions?
Well, there is so this would be a -3 determination if that's what you vote for, which does have a line that says we approve this based with the following conditions. So there are conditions that can be placed on an RDA. It just doesn't get recorded. So I think that's where the confusion comes. You can put conditions on it. It just doesn't go on the deed. So they're a little bit, they're not less enforceable. They're just less risk for the homeowner, I guess, to not follow them. But you can put conditions on it. So, and then we'll get the new site plan. The site plan is what will have to be followed. So we'll have the new site plan that shows the work limit, which will show that there will be no tree removal other than the driveway and the septic out, unless it's outside of our jurisdiction. So I think that's really all I had. So they agreed to do no lawn in the 200, which would mean their work limit for other than the septic will curve around the house to show that no lawn will be in the 200 foot jurisdiction. So other than that, because only the driveway and the septic are the only things in our jurisdiction, everything's outside of the 100, I would recommend a -3. Which is work is in our jurisdiction, but will not have an impact on the wetland area. I mean, I would prefer the driveway to be pervious, but if you can do some sort of swale or drain, then I'd be fine with that as well.
Okay. Bob, did you have something else, or did you just not
Yeah,
lower your hand?
No, I wanted to follow up on that.
Yes. Go
So
ahead.
Nikki has brought the concept of -3 to us when she became the agent here. So I'm not all that familiar with it. How then, Nikki, do we determine that those conditions were met?
I mean, that is a difficulty with ARs and RDAs is where's the follow-up? I can't keep track of every single permit that we ever get to make sure I go out and do a site visit after 3 years or 6 months or whatever the timeline may be. They have to follow the plan that is approved as the plan of record. So I guess if they wanted to do anything else in the future, I would have to go out there and do a site visit. And then we could see if something was not in compliant, but you are correct. There's concern that they could get approved and kind of do what they want, and then we may never catch it. I mean, that's kind of a risk with most permits, I guess.
It'd be good to check the post office box.
I'm getting some, can people on the phone please mute yourselves? If you are not speaking, we're picking up the sound of other conversations. So that is okay then. We can't, as a practical matter, that we cannot enforce an RDA. It's a determination. It either, it's something that we say that the scope of this project is such that it does not require a permit. And it would then be incumbent on the commission and as a further practical matter on the agent to monitor what's going on, and if there's non-compliance with that, that would probably rise to the level of a violation of the bylaw or the Wetlands Protection Act or the Riverfront Act of some sort. So we do this at our peril, that it does put more of a burden on us to make sure, because you're right, we don't have a certificate of compliance. We don't have the annual monitoring. We don't have things like that.
Right, and for those reasons, unlike a lot of RDAs that come before us, which I think are a little more cut and dried and straightforward, this one doesn't fit into that category for me.
Okay, I agree. It's more extensive than we normally see. Mr. Paolucci has his hand up, the homeowner. Would you want to weigh in here?
Yes, good morning, and thanks for having me on today. I just wanted to let you know, I know I'm the new guy coming in the town there, and but I've been doing this over 30 years. I've never been cited. We do everything right by the book. I have a great relationship up here in Lakeville and in the towns I work in with the conservation department. I'm actually on the board of health up here in this town, so I know your side of all this. Because of that, I know the DEP people. I mean, you guys. I mean, some sounds like two of yous live right there, so you're gonna be checking it every day, but I mean, we always do. I've never been cited in 30 years. We do things the right way, and I know, I'm sure you hear that from a lot of people, but you know, if any of yous wanted to check up on me, we're not gonna come in there and make a mess. We're gonna, you know, I was the one when I saw on the plan that there was no silt sock along the road, and I told Brad I was gonna do that anyway. I do that on every job, so. You know, so I just wanted just to know, I mean, if it gives you any type of a comfort level, I mean, you could, feel free to call any of the people, and, I'm not going to make a mess there. I don't try to go around the boards. We're trying to do the right thing over there and have as little impact as possible as we can on the lot. And with the hopes that I still get my aunt to be able to get a few years there. She's in her 80s now, but my hope is to try to get this up over the winter and get her a couple of summers there. They bought it back when I graduated high school, and my uncle got sick and struggled with Alzheimer's for years, so he couldn't move, so they never got to move there. And when he passed away, me and my aunt are doing this project now, so it's in the family. It's not going to be a rental. It's going to be our home. So I just wanted you to know where we were coming from and what's going on that property and what our intentions are. Thank you, Mr. Flitch. I appreciate that. Appreciate your coming today and speaking. I think, is there any other questions before comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, Tom, go ahead.
I'm going to agree with my fellow commissioner that given the very limited scope of an RDA and the fact that this is going to have work going on, and the fact that the plans concede jurisdiction, I don't see any reason to go with anything other than just an outright denial. And because of the issues that have been raised by the other commissioners, I think we should require an NOI.
Okay. Thank you for that. Brad, did you have something else?
I do. I just want to point out that we do a lot of work in a lot of towns, and I respect the commission's concerns about what can happen with a request for determination. And as the agent identified, the negative determination would be to permit the work as presented. And any work that's not presented would not be approved by this commission and would be, in fact, in violation. So there's really no risk to the commission, any more so than once an order of conditions comes through and a project is completed, and then an applicant, after a certificate of compliance, goes out and cuts trees beyond what was originally the work limit line. This negative determination, if the commission saw fit to issue this, is really for what amounts to 500 square feet of a driveway that is on the landward side of an existing established paved roadway, which is on the landward side of an existing house that's surrounded by a developed yard and lawn. And then behind that house, there's the resource area that we're protecting. So there are a number of physical barriers between this property and the limited work area that's within the commission's jurisdiction that I think should allay, in our view, any fear of adverse impact on the resource areas that you're charged to protect.
Thank you. That is all. Those are all points worth some consideration. I'll just have to say, in my view, this is a tough call a bit. I mean, it is just the 500 square feet of the driveway. It is landward of the road and the house. However, it's a substantial intrusion into a jurisdictional area. And I think what I'm hearing, and I have to agree that the issues that we're mostly concerned about, I mean, I know you can't do any work outside of this plan without express authorization of the commission. So I'm not overly concerned about that. But this driveway concerns me because you are saying it's going to be paved. So here's what I would suggest. I don't think we're ready to make a determination today. I think we need a bit more information. I know you said you were going to give Nikki a new plan with the limit of work. So I would suggest you do that and provide us some more information on the drainage coming off this driveway. How much, what do we, I mean, the property is sloped upward from the roadway. So the concern is that the stormwater runoff will come down a paved driveway across Northgate Road and then into the wetland and the stream on the other side. So whatever you can show us to tell us that that is not going to happen, and therefore the impact of this project goes back to the de minimis level that we would require for a determination of applicability, would go a long way, at least in my view and maybe the view of some others. So that's my suggestion. Or go back to, or I mean, I guess if it's going to be lived in all year round and given the slope, maybe stone or pervious surface. Although, have you looked, I don't question whether you've examined pervious pavers as an option. That's another thing to think about. Does anybody else have other questions? Karen, you have your hand up that you would like them to look at before they come back.
I just am curious with where the driveway is located, and I know on the one side opposite the driveway, you're putting boulders or something to keep runoff from going that way. Has any consideration been given to, is there any chance for runoff going, toward the other property near the driveway? We've talked about runoff going down, but we haven't talked about runoff in other directions if you're changing the grade. Just curious.
I think the boulders that you're referring to the adjoining property, that's
right.
The property line is actually significantly higher than the house location. So that's cutting into the hill. So there's no risk of having any runoff going to the neighboring property. Our property would be, or this property is actually lower by the way the grading is proposed than the adjoining land. So that's retaining the grade of the boundary line, and we're on the low side of that.
So how about the other side? Is there any chance from changing it that there will be? I don't know. I'm just asking.
No, the contours would indicate that area is swaled. So to the easterly side of the garage and that side of the driveway, the proposed contours, which are solid on the plan, show them swaling, sort of making a cup shape, which is very limited. The grade changes there are less than a foot of grade change, but that's intended to cup or swale the area so that to ensure that nothing goes beyond the limits of this property.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Bob, further comment?
Yeah, I just want to, nothing has, I think we're losing sight of the fact that there are 8 trees being taken out, some of which are sizable. No compensation is being offered. So in your summary, Janet, of the things that you think we ought to see, I want to make sure that that's on that list. This is really the fundamental reason why I think this is not an RDA.
Okay. Mr. Marlowe, did you understand that this does, I wrote down that there are the 4 oak trees between 6 and 10 inch, and 6 to 8 pines as well. Given that it's a heavily treed lot, I don't know that compensation in the form of planting other trees is necessarily helpful. And I wonder what the homeowner might want to do to compensate for the loss of those trees. Is there any chance that they'd be willing to, say, use native species in the landscaping around the house to provide some of the habitat that the loss of the trees is taking with it?
I think we could review that, Madam Chairman, and when we come back with a revised plan, which we're very open to, certainly to address the concerns that have been raised with runoff down toward Northgate Road, we're glad to look at surfacing options, drainage options, and we'll address the tree and let's, for lack of a better term, call it mitigation or offset for the tree removal. We're glad to address that in a revised plan. And a follow-up if that's okay.
Okay. Yep. That's, I think that would be helpful. Terry, you have your hand up.
Yeah. Does the 200, this is the first time, so I'm new. Does the 200-foot riverfront setback, is that the same rules as the 100-foot wetland setback?
It has its own performance standards, and riverfront is different. It's governed under the Riverfront Act. I can't think that's the right name. It's not the Wetlands Protection Act. It's a different statute. It is, but the Conservation Commission is directed to administer that statute when in these conditions. So unlike, say, a wetland area that has a buffer zone on either side of it, the Riverfront Act protects the stream or the river, the waterway. In this case, it's just a small stream, along with 200 feet on either side of it. So there's no buffer zone. That total of 400-foot width is what the resource area is. So that's why we don't often get this. This is the second one that I've ever seen. Part of the reason that it's a little bit unusual that we're dealing with riverfront as a resource area.
Janet?
Yes, Tom.
I would just want to point out that as to jurisdiction, bylaw 272-3 sub E makes this a jurisdictional resource under the Chatham bylaw.
Yes, it is definitely a resource area for us, the riverfront. There's no doubt about that. It's why we're focusing on it, because as I look at the site plan, I don't have it up anymore. The driveway is essentially out of the 100. It starts just over to where the 100 ends from the wetland. But it's this portion of the driveway that's within the riverfront area that is our focus. So I have on my list here then, we will continue this and come back with drainage calculations for the runoff coming from the driveway, a proposal to deal with any runoff, a numbering of an inventory of the trees that are going to be removed and what is being offered as compensation for the loss of those trees. What else do I have here? I think that's it. It's really the runoff and the trees that are the two issues.
If we continue, Madam Chairman, limit of work, Madam Chairman.
Oh, the limit of work. Thank you. That's it. LOW. If we continue this to June 23rd, that would mean getting us those materials 1 week ahead of time, which would be June 16th, 1 week from today. Is that doable, or would you rather move it to a date in July?
That would be acceptable, Madam Chairman.
Okay. Then let's hold off on making any determinations today. Give them another chance to come back on June 23rd and take a look at it then. So is there a motion to continue this to June 23rd?
Move to continue to June 23rd.
Clark, second.
All right, roll call vote for 0 Northgate. Commissioner Rawls?
Aye.
Delvecchio?
Aye.
Pitts?
Abstain.
Clark?
Aye.
Latin?
Aye.
Sullivan?
Aye.
That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I vote aye. 6, 0, 1. That continuance is approved. All right, thank you all. Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank you very much.
Appearance, and we will see you on June 23rd.
Thank you.
All right, Nikki, ready for the next one.
All right, next we have a request to amend an order of conditions for 543 Old Harbor Road, Michael Earls, map 16H, parcel 3, SE 10-3456. This is for the addition of a pool and deck. I just want to start off saying I've gotten a lot of abutter comments, many of which came in well after work hours last night, so they have not been properly reviewed. I hold the butters to the same standard that if they want their comments carefully reviewed, they should be submitted in a timely manner, just like we require for new plans and everything from engineers. So my suggestion is that they will all be part of the public record. I will print them off, put them in the document, or put them in the file and all of that, but I'm not going to read every single one that I haven't even had a chance to review myself, for the sake of time. I suggest that we allow any abutters, of course, to speak if they wish, but with a limit to 1 or 2 minutes. It needs to be conservation minded. I do not think that anybody should be talking about the fact that it's a rental property, the fact that it can be noisy. That's not under conservation purview. So I need it to stay conservation related, and I'm going to be fairly strict if this starts to be getting long-winded. So I just want to advise everybody of that.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because we do have a long agenda today, and this is our, I don't know, our third proposal for this property, and probably our 6th or 7th time we've had it in hearing. So while there's a lot of people who are new to the commission, for some of us, this is something we've seen many times, and it is limited to the pool and the deck that is proposed. And yes, we will hear from abutters, and Nicole is going to be carefully monitoring that. All right. With that, Nikki, if you want, Thad, are you going to share? You're going to share your screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. You've got the floor.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair. This is Bill Riley.
Good morning.
So just a little back. Since we were last before you, we've had extensive discussions with the neighbors, the Wallies. The applicant considered moving the pool in a manner that outside the jurisdiction of the commission. That of course would move the pool closer to the Wally residence. So as a result of that, although Mrs. Wally remains opposed in general to pools, she's less opposed to this location than others. So that's what brought us back to this particular design. So I'm gonna turn it over to Thad to go over the technical details, but I wanted you and the commissioners to understand how we got to this location, how we got to this point. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And hi, Thad Aldridge. Is my screen coming through for others?
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, excellent.
that is for me.
Yep.
And
Yeah, the pool doesn't show up on this drawing though.
correct. All right,
Right.
excellent. So I'm in that screen. So for the record, Thad Aldridge, the screen that I'm showing right now, the picture, this is the final plan that we had approved last year. We had originally proposed a pool, and we were considerably delayed because of COVID. And in order to get construction underway, we pulled the pool. We then submitted this plan. It was approved by Cali, and it included a bit of intrusion into the 50 still that was within the footprint of the previous pool. I'm aware that Mr. Clark was a little bit worried that our proposal increased the work within the 50-foot buffer. It's about 10 square feet above what that approved plan had, with a little bit of corner of deck as the stairs come down, and then it goes to the pool deck that's proposed. And for convenience, I've shown that in red on this plan. So this is more or less the same plan that you saw originally. I realize many commissioners weren't here for that, but and we met with some opposition, and again, in order to avoid delays, we took the pool at that time with the thought of coming back. This location has been approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we are now coming forward with mitigation with Crawford Land Management to tackle the knotweed that's on the property. Area-wise, we are covered. The proposed knotweed removal will be well above the 1-to-1 mitigation ratio, and the previous mitigation that was proposed covered the pool, and that was not reduced when the pool was withdrawn. If Jen Crawford is on the line,
Which I can't believe I'm looking at Jen Crawford today, but hello, you look remarkably well. And you're muted, Jen.
Thank you. I said I'm tired but functioning, so here I am. So Thad, do you have our plan on there as well as I have it on my screen? So like Thad said, mitigation was proposed with the original NOI package for this project and for the pool. When the pool was taken off, that mitigation remained. So as we are coming back to you through this amended order process, we're giving you another round of mitigation for the pool that we are hoping to gain approval for. In this round, I did an evaluation of the property, and we noted that there was Japanese knotweed on the property, and it was growing in close proximity right next to the septic system. As a lot of you commissioners know, Japanese knotweed is an invasive species that is difficult to get rid of, and it has very deep root systems, and it can be fairly destructive to everything, I guess, like asphalt. So we thought that with it being in such close proximity to the septic system, that this was probably one of the main concerns from an ecological standpoint to deal with, which is why we focused our mitigation area where a large patch of the Japanese knotweed is growing. So what you see in front of you is proposed mitigation for around 2,500 square feet, which is a little bit over what would be required. My plan matches Thad's and shows the exact layout that's on his plan, all outside of the no disturb zone and the outer buffer zone. And I've included on the plan, there are some plan notes as well as a protocol that I submitted to you with treatment protocol for Japanese knotweed, as you would see it with any of our other projects. So I don't think I need to say any more about that at this point in time. You have the plans in front of you, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Before I open it up to questions from commissioners, I just want to start by saying, Thad, one of the problems I had in reviewing this and looking at the site plan is that you did use the pre-existing approved site plan and added the pool back into it. And I understand that it's close to the same as it was before. The problem is I can't looking at a site plan that has the proposed house and the walkways and everything else that was approved the last time this came through. And the coverage table is also the pre-existing coverage table. So I can't discern what the coverage of the pool and the decking would be. So what I would ask is for a plan that takes off the notes and the other items that are applicable to the previously approved project and focuses our attention on what is the impact of this pool and this deck, so that we can evaluate that a little bit more clearly. Okay, that's my first request. So I say that, so this proposal is just the pool and the decking and the mitigation that Jen just explained. Is there anything else involved in this?
No.
Okay. So we've been through this question before, but for the benefit of the commissioners who have not heard this before, there's obvious concerns with siting a pool in a floodplain. And the number one focus of those concerns is drainage, because you're putting a impervious structure in a floodplain. So what is the plan for how do you meet the performance standard that you do not decrease the ability of the land to absorb floodwater with this pool?
So with the previous proposal and this one, we proposed an under drain. So there will be a drainage system. We'll have crushed stone underneath the deck beside the pool, and then a pipe system underneath. So any water that comes out here will have the ability to drain. It makes the impervious surface as pervious as possible. Now that system will be under the entire pool, so there will be an ability for water to continue to drain in the same locations.
So, and the pool is slightly elevated, right? I have that.
Yes.
So this wet ground, and it is, it's fairly wet. Everybody who's been there has remarked on the squishiness, as it were, of it. But the ground is at elevation 6, and the top of the pool, as you're showing it here, meets the decking at elevation 4.5. So the top of the pool is elevated roughly 5.5 feet above the ground elevation. Is that enough to, what the concern is, this property is impacted by floodwaters, both from the wetland that is in the back and the north side of it, as well as potentially the wetland and storm flow coming from Calyard. Does the elevation of this pool to elevation 11.4 mean that if floodwaters enter the property, they will not be able to enter the pool and cause an overflow and cause problems in the area?
Madam Chair, before Thad responds, I just want to state that we disagree with your comment that this property is subject to flooding from the wetland up higher on the property. That goes down into a standing water area that has a pipe that directs the water across the street, and we don't believe that the flooding from that location is actually a substantial risk.
So so Nikki, if you can, or Thad, if you can show us where the location of the water and the wetland on the northern side, and where that drainage pipe runs, and how it picks up the water and where it exits, because that had been a focus of a previous. We've talked a lot about that pipe, and had it been broken before, which maybe, I don't know, in my view, might be part of the reason that the property is so waterlogged. Is the pipe fixed, and how does it work, and how does it prevent it from flooding?
So the pipe has been repaired, or it's in the process of being repaired. We're also putting a gate in. And so it's a backflow preventer, so that when floodwaters come in from Old Harbor, they head up, they'll hit that backflow preventer, and they won't enter into the wetland. The area of contribution around here for that wetland is not great enough to cause flooding from the inland side. The flooding that we've seen in the past here is coming through this drainage pipe that runs under the building, and that runs out across the street into that wetland system. And it's a fairly extensive system. There were 3 or 4 boxes out there that it drains through before getting out to Old Harbor. So we believe that we've remediated the concern with ocean water coming into the property through that pipe. Now, the floodplain out here, we are looking at a 14. We're looking at, when that flood hits, it will overflow into the pool. The pool is going to be a saltwater pool, so it's really, we're not expecting any saltate or environmental impact from that. And that's the storm of the century, talking about the 1% chance storm event. In most storm events, and the elevation 11.4 for the top of the pool, that's going to confine everything. And the street level out front is below 11.4. So even if we did have floodwaters generated from the inland wetland, they're going to go over the street before they go into the pool.
Madam Chair, just a reminder that the Commissioner Clark's concerns about historical flood heights, that has provided information that the highest flood on the Chatham Harbor side came from the no-name storm back in October 1991, and that elevation was elevation 9, I believe. Is that correct, Thad?
Yeah, more or less. And
Okay. Well, less than 10.
Yep.
Less than 10. So
Okay.
it was a big one, but it wasn't the big one.
Okay. And this is going to take it up to almost 1.5 feet above that level.
Yes.
Well, okay. But, pools last for decades. And I just wonder what in decades will be the highest level that storms will be hitting. It's a matter of concern, but I'll continue thinking about that. At this point, let me open it up to questions from commission members. Everybody thinks about that. Nikki, do you have I'll come back to you.
Sure, I have a few things. So I'm questioning the need for that second small deck that's completely in the 50 when you already have such a large pool deck. And then there's no replacement of trees for the ones that are being removed for the pool. And just as a form of basically keeping things clean as far as paperwork on my end, I would really like either Crawford's plan to show the previous mitigation that's around the wetland that was approved with, I think, Susan Sandiolo's plan. So I'd either like that incorporated on the Crawford plan as well, or we will definitely put a condition in that that plan is still pertinent and still needs to be followed. I just don't want that to get lost when it comes to COC on which landscape mitigation plan we're looking at. So I mean, I would kind of like the planting plan, landscape plans, mitigation plans to all match. And then just what is the decking material? How pervious is it to allow water to infiltrate into the soil? And I think we should add the condition that we to demarcate the planting areas from the lawn. So, boulders or something that keeps that area from being mown or altered in the future. And I think that's the extent of my comments at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to start jotting down. If you're keeping a list as well, we'll circle back at the end to make sure that we've captured everything. But at this point, let me go to Bob Rawls.
Actually, I put my hand down because nobody was saying anything, but Nikki did a nice job of summarizing some of my concerns. Just some miscellaneous questions. Is there a pool fence anywhere for this pool?
That would be at the top of the deck.
On the deck itself?
On the deck itself, there'd be a railing around it because we're more than 30 inches above the ground. And that will also act as the pool fence.
Right. I noticed that in some of the comments, and I guess the abutters will get their chance at this, that this traditionally has been, and I don't know if it will be going forward, sort of a quote unquote party house with a lot of noise. Some of the concerns had to do with the effect upon the wildlife in the neighboring resource area. And I just wondered whether or not, what your thoughts are on that. It is not going to be I guess we really can't ask whether it's going to be a rental or not, but if it were to be a rental, I guess that would still remain a concern. I'm not sure how we would deal with that.
Madam Chair, Bill
Yes,
Riley.
go ahead, Bill, you may respond.
In the first place, it's not a conservation issue. In the second place, this property is being purchased by the Earl family as a summer residence. So the Earl family is going to be using it It's not intended to be rental, although certainly there can be no prohibition against a rental if they wanted to do that. But for now they have no intention of renting it. It's going to be for their use only. And one reason why they like having a pool is they have a pool at their home up in Rentham, and it provides a lot of fun and an area for the family to recreate and relax. So aside from the fact that it's possible they might actually have fun there, and there may be some laughing, and perhaps even an occasional shout of joy. I don't see noise as a problem here.
Okay, that's good to hear. I'm not sure if I totally agree with you that it's not a conservation issue, but we'll let that one slide on by for the moment. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bob Del Vecchio.
First of all, I like the mitigation plan for the Japanese knotweed, or the management plan. And I like that it's going to be mitigated in that area. I'm a little bit unsure of the size of the structure, and I'm looking to maybe have it reduced in size, the pool and the decking, because I think it's an impact on wildlife movement. And I believe it increases the coverage overall in that area. So I'm opposed with the size of the structure at this point, but I do like the Japanese knotweed management, and I like the additional mitigation. I think that will have a positive impact on the wildlife and the ecosystem. Thanks.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
The Earl family believes that as a result of their conversations with the Volleys, they've reduced the size of the pool already, and that'll give you the dimension. They've also reduced the size of the deck, particularly on the area on the south side. The area on the north side is simply large enough so that the family can put a chaise lounge out. It's only so that section is 12 feet wide. The section on the south side is only 5 feet wide. And as I say, we've already reduced the size of the pool. So I think on a property of this particular size, we think it's very unlikely that this minor change, which is elevated, still remember the deck is elevated, so critters can pass underneath if that's where they want to go, that there's any significant interference with wildlife movement. So I appreciate Bob's concerns. I just think that they've really already addressed them in the design. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Terry Sullivan, questions, comments?
We're limited by 10% coverage. I'm not sure if that's a zoning issue. I know it's a zoning issue. I don't know if it's an issue for us or not. But
that's a zoning issue. Yeah.
Pardon?
That's a zoning issue. We don't have that.
Okay, so my question, I guess, would be whether the pool and the decking is included in the 10% coverage, but if that's a zoning issue, it's not our issue. So it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Just the share it wouldn't be.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yes.
The coverage in the zoning is for roofed structures only. So that's why this plan with a slightly larger deck and slightly larger pool has already been approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, sure, go ahead.
I know there's a 10% bill, but I thought there was also a limitation on uncovered. I don't know when I did my own house a couple of years ago, there was a limitation further higher than 10%, I guess, but on uncovered, unroofed structures also.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Sloan?
in the zoning bylaw, there's no limitation on lot coverage except in general business zones. So, I mean, that's just something that's not in our zoning bylaw. So there's no limitation on unroofed structures in that part of the bylaw. There are a lot of other restrictions. That's not one of them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Terry, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Any other commission members have any other questions or comments at this time?
I have a request.
Yes, Tom, go ahead.
I was intrigued by Mr. Riley's comment that the pool structure wouldn't impair the movement of wildlife and would allow them to pass under. Just because we see that on occasion, I was wondering if Tad could perhaps add a detail that would show us how that would happen. Just because I'd like to educate myself about how to deal with structures of that type in the future, to be perfectly honest. And I think it'd be a great feature, and I'd like to understand how it would work.
Yeah, Madam Chair?
Yes, Bill.
I refer to creatures moving into I was referring to the deck only, not to the pool itself.
Right, I was assuming that the deck was the deck around the pool. Am I incorrect about that, Bill?
No, well, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. It's elevated, so.
And what's on the exterior? What is it? What is the material beneath the deck that connects the deck down to the ground? Lattice of some sort or something like that?
The proposal was to put lattice on the outside.
Okay, and that goes all the way to the ground, correct?
That could certainly be elevated by 12 inches to allow larger animals to get through.
But at some point, even if they could get through, they're going to bump into the side of the pool, right?
Well, not if they keep their eyes open, Madam Chair.
Well, they can go so far. What is the distance? So the deck changes, as we know. So on one side, it's about 3 feet. On the other side, about 7 or so. So there's some room for wildlife to move around the pool beneath the decking if the lattice is elevated slightly. Is that, Tom, is that your understanding of what they're talking about?
Yes, I would be interested in the design. I think it's a great idea, and we run into this with other pools on occasion. So I thought if Tad has come up with a creative way of dealing with that issue, that'd be great. And I'd like to see it so I could consider it in the future for other sites.
Okay, got that. I agree.
And just to
So
share,
I
most
shared
sites
my
we don't have a raised pool.
Sorry, Thad, I'm going to cut you off for just a
Right,
second.
right.
I just shared my screen. In all honesty, the animals are going to stay away from here anyway. So the pool is proposed right here. They're going to be traveling through here and in the wetlands and down here at the beach. And I really don't think, I mean, yeah, you're going to get a raccoon and squirrels and chipmunks and whatever hanging around the house. But for the most part, any, significant animal species are all going to be up in here in all this treed area in the wetland area. So I don't really see that the pool is going to inhibit their travel that much. It's not like the whole area is getting fenced or anything. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Janet?
Yes, Tom.
I am always reluctant to disagree with our learned conservation agent, but I would point out that a lot of wildlife move around rather late at night. And so while she's correct about where they might hang out most of the time, I don't think that it's like a 24-hour thing. I've seen plenty of animals move around well-established houses at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. So I just add that as a comment.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Bill.
very brief.
Very briefly.
Only to, the reason why the decision from the commission is called an order of conditions is that you can impose conditions. It's not the goal of the Wetlands Protection Act to ensure that every square inch of a property is available for animal passage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We get that. Bob Del Vecchio, you have your hand up.
I mean, I look at the scale in the plan, and I see that and I measure the pool, and the pool is 40 feet long, according to my calculations, by 20 feet wide. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And that's longer than my house, or just about the same size of my house, long. So that's a huge structure, and plus the decking. So I just think that's too large of a structure in that area. Thank you.
Okay. All right. It's now 10:06. We've been at this one for over half an hour now. If the commissioners have no other questions or comments, we will open it to other participants on the call. I will remind everybody, as Nicole already did, but it's worth saying again, because we do have a heavy agenda for today. We're going to leave you to a minute. If you can do it in a minute, that's great. You get a minute and a half tops. We have all of your written comments. They will be part of the record. So you don't need to read them or repeat them. And if you have something pertinent to say, we are happy to hear you. So anyone who wants to make a comment or ask a question should please raise your hand, and we will recognize each of you. All right, Mr. Larson.
Yes, just briefly, we live next door to the property, and will be the closest abutter to the property, to the pool, and our family's lived here 100 years, and so we're long-term people here. I submitted something late last night, mainly because we all got our notices, which get sent to our regular houses, and then they get forwarded on by the postal. So we all got them late last week. So I mean, it's or at least some of the people that put it. But though I apologize for the lateness of it. This pool is larger than the pool at the Wayside Inn. The deck in the pool is 2,000 square feet. People live in houses smaller than that. Okay, and I'm glad to hear that that they're going to make it smaller. I'd like to know what that is. If you guys are voting on something today, you need to know what the hell you're voting on. The second thing is this entire house is within the 100-foot area, and half of it's on the 50-foot area. And it just seems a little crazy that you're going to put another pool in the 100-foot area, which is supposed to be the protected wetlands area. And I do think we do have a lot of animals around here. My wife and I are big conservation folks. And there are deers and stuff running all around the place. We have a great owl and a number of other things. And it just seems to put another 2,000 square foot structure within the protected wetlands radius seems a little bit, you should have some really compelling reasons to do that. You can't say, well, it's already been screwed up because the house is in it. And of course, the house has been there forever. So I know the girls have nothing to do with that. The other thing is I do think the noise affects it. I think the lighting affects it. The boom boxes and all that stuff affects the animal traffic. And when I asked the Earls, which I just talked to last week, they could not assure me that this was not a rental property. And so if Mr. Ryland says it's definitely going to be their property, they're going to use it, they're not going to rent it.
We cannot talk about how they choose to use the property.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm just saying though, but you know, it's more comforting to know that one, they're going to make it smaller, and two, that they're not going to have large groups of people there, because I do think it affects it. So, and then the Earls and us and the suitors own the cow yard itself, and you know, we're very protective. That's part of this whole wetlands. You know, it's a whole stream. It's probably the largest part of natural habitat for animals in this area. So I'll just shut up there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Larson, appreciate it. And we do have your written comments, and we will be continuing this anyway. So the fact that they all came in so late is not all that important, because there's time to consider everything carefully. We're not deciding anything today. Any other participants who wish to ask a question or make a comment? All right, I'm going to, yes, Mr. Bali.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I just want to be clear. Will we have a chance to speak again, or is this the only time we'll have a chance to speak?
Not the only hearing. I've made a list here of more detailed information and requests that we're making of the applicant. So we will be continuing it to get all of that information in, including questions about the size and the coverage of the deck and the pool, and a number of other issues. So there will be another opportunity.
I guess I'm just wondering, when is the time to, what is appropriate to talk about now in terms of this?
We do have your submission. We have the spreadsheet and the PDF of the different views. I saw all that for about 30 seconds this morning before I logged onto the platform. So I would hold off on any comment regarding any of that, because I know that nobody else has had a chance to see that yet. So it would be premature. So we will continuing this. We'll make sure we build in enough time.
Okay, I guess I just want to make.
So here's what I would suggest to you. If you have a specific request of information that you would like to receive before, when this gets heard again, this is the time to speak up and ask them to do that.
I will speak again. I guess one thing I would say is, I know we've talked about the use of the property, and I've learned a lot in the last 6 months in this process, and I thank you all for your help. But one big thing I've learned is that we're supporting a physical structure for human activity that's more and more structures that are used for commercial value. So I love the stories about what people will use it for, but this project is about supporting a permanent structure that's going to outlast the current owners. That is, a swimming pool and a deck are not removable. They're like swing sets or trampolines. And that is why we withdrew our initial support for this. But and as I've learned more, I've become more and more concerned about the possibility of building in this site and the precedent that it could set. So I'll speak more later, but thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right.
Madam Chairwoman.
Yes.
Madam Chairwoman, this is Virginia. I'd like to be heard for a minute and a half.
Yes, go ahead.
We own the property across the street, 556 Old Harbor Way, and when we tore the old property there down and worked with the Conservation Commission ourselves, they did an enormously responsible set of activities in place to make sure we covered every inch of protection of that property. I was impressed beyond words, and we built the mitigation area with great attention to every plant, every planting, every tree, every size. It was meticulous, and we were proud to participate in it. We love the area, and I understand that there's no comments to be made about the rental property. I'll make none. My problem is that building a 2,000 square foot structure in the wetland area is inconsistent with any experience we've had in Chatham. And I'm a lifelong Cape Codder, so it's not something. I played in those areas when I was a kid of 8 or 9 years old. So I understand, the whole intent of this, and so it flies in the face of at least the logic I've been exposed to, that we could have such a thing. 4-minute walk down Cow Yard, you're in a beautiful, you're in all the salt water you can get yourself into. And, building a saltwater pool that has all of the maintenance requirements associated with it in terms of treatment and drainage. I just for the life of me can't understand why that has to be an integral part of this property. We didn't object at all to the fact that, it was grandfathered in the sense that they could build on the structure that was there. That's fair enough. But what's inconsistent to me is how then do you, with the beach a stone's throw away, you need a saltwater pool. And I'll rest and yield the balance of my time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Thank you for calling in today. All right, I'll read out what we've asked for and where we are with this, and then we'll figure out the right date. So we've asked for a couple of things with respect to the site plan. One is that we would like to have a detail and particularly a coverage table that relates just to the pool and the decking so that we can identify and evaluate the size and the impact that this proposal has. And along with that, I'll relay the request that we've heard from multiple people today that consideration be given to reducing the size of the structure, the pool and the decking. We've asked to please add the proposed mitigation site to the site plan so that we can see it in a comprehensive way. And Nikki has asked that the previously approved mitigation areas also be added so that in the interest of workers, because this project is still being worked on, there's workers everywhere and there's a lot of activity happening. So to the extent to which there can be a single plan that has these various elements that we care about, the mitigation areas, carefully labeled so that there's no impact, that would be helpful. We're asking for more detail on the number of trees that are being removed, that we understand that. I would like more information, Jen, on the mitigation proposal. I would like to see more detail on the protocol for the knotweed removal. What exactly are you going to be doing and when? What are you injecting it with? When does that happen? And if you could, a timeline would be helpful to see what the activities are. I understand from the narrative that there's an injection process that will happen in the late summer or the fall, and then wait for a year. I can't quite tell when planting happens, so a timeline would be helpful. And some detail on how that mitigation area is going to be demarcated. There's already demarcation requirements and mow strip requirements in the existing order of conditions. Maybe something along those lines, especially if you're dealing with knotweed. And if the knotweed continues off of this property onto adjoining properties, what's the plan for protecting this mitigation area from knotweed moving back in and taking it over? Like to see more detail on the decking material. Don't see any detail on what that is and how it will allow for infiltration of rainwater through the decking material down to the crushed stone beneath. Nikki, what else do we have on our list?
I think you pretty well covered it. And then just a note that for the trees that are being removed, I would like them replaced at least 1-to-1 in the 100-foot buffer where the actual pool is. Because that was, I mean, I love the proposal to remove the knotweed and get the natives in that area, but the only concern I had with that was that there's no mitigation proposed in the 100-foot buffer where the actual pool is going. So, so any trees, vegetation that needs to be removed for the construction of a pool should be replaced in the vicinity of where the pool is going.
This is Jen Crawford. Really quickly, I don't believe this isn't an existing lawn area, so there's no vegetation being removed in order to put the pool in this particular location. And I think that the tree that's shown on Thad's plan was something that was approved with the original permit, but I'll double check all those things and address those concerns as Nikki has requested. Not a problem.
Okay, just confirm then that there's have a note of confirmation that if there are no trees coming out. I do remember a lot of conversation about the one tree, and I think it's I can't remember what it is. I don't want to mischaracterize it.
All right, given that list, what is your preference for a continuance date? You have the 23rd, if you could do all that in 1 week. And then the next hearing date after that is July the 14th.
I would defer it to Thad, since he's the one who's going to be doing the work, he and
Yep.
Jen.
I would push this out to the 14th.
I can, on my end, I could probably do either one because I think the things that I need to address are pretty straightforward, actually.
Yeah, I think it is mostly on Thad's desk to do this. All right, I'm going to give you have some extra time, and we need the time to look over the materials that have been submitted by abutters and others in the neighborhood that we haven't yet had a chance to review. So I think the 14th of July is a good date. Give everybody time to think about this some more. Think about what conditions we need to begin that process if it is approvable. And I'm not assuming that anybody would say it is, but we need to think about if it were, what the conditions would be that would go into the order to be protective. So with that, is there a motion to continue 543 Old Harbor Road to July the 14th?
Move to continue to July 14th.
Clark, second.
Roll call vote, 543 Old Harbor Road. Commissioner Walls.
Aye.
Del Vecchio.
Aye.
Pitts.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That's unanimous. 7-0. We will meet back here on July the 14th. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the work.
All right, we'll see you on Bastille Day.
Oh my goodness, it is. Well, we will storm something somewhere. Okay. All right, Nikki, ready to move on.
All right, this is the beginning of our notices of intent. 300 Stage Neck Road, Daniel Brickman, map 9A, parcel 10-3, SE 10-3494, and this is vegetation management. And I believe Teresa Sprague is from Blue Flax is the representative for this. Teresa, I don't know, I can share my screen, it's up, but I don't know if you want to share yours so that you can use your cursor and things like that. So just let me know.
Thanks, Nikki. If you would share your screen, I'm kind of working off of 2 computers right now because my desktop that I'm doing this on is a little slow this morning. So I've got my plans up on my laptop.
Do you want the planting plan, the restoration planting plan up, or?
Sure, yep, that would be fine.
All right, we're all set, I believe.
Okay, great, thank you. Good morning, Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design here on behalf of Dan Brickman and Lawrence Weber, the property owner, Dan Brickman, the applicant for this project located on 300 Stage Neck Road. I appreciate the commission taking the time to come out and meet at the site. It's kind of a difficult site to get to and complicated, so I think it was very helpful that we were all able to view the site. I'm just going to go quickly over the existing conditions. Basically, the whole entire lot at 300 Stage Neck is just over 227,000 square feet, broken up into 2 portions. The northern portion of the lot, which is not showing on the plan, is developed for residential use. In 2002, Chatham Conservation Foundation was granted a CR for the southern portion of the lot. The area is about 79,310 square feet, and it's outlined in green on the plan that you're seeing from east-southeast from Thad Eldridge's office. That is the area of the CR at 300 Stage Neck Road. Portion is undeveloped, really densely vegetated. We have a coastal bank running along the western boundary at the edge of the Oyster Pond River. And to the east, we have an isolated wetland, which makes up approximately 1/3 of the lot. In and around the edges of the isolated wetland, vegetation is virtually 100% native. We've got red maple, oak, sassafras in the canopy, hazelnut, viburnum, Virginia creeper, sarsaparilla, winterberry, swamp azalea, highbush blueberry, and sumac in the understory. We also have a thick duff layer, a diverse mix of herbaceous perennials, and the canopy cover is dense along the edge, but more opened as you get in towards the isolated wetland. On the coastal bank and along the top of the coastal bank, we continue to see densely growing vegetation. The shrub and canopy layers mature. We have eastern red cedar,
rugosa rose, Virginia rose, viburnum, beach plum, bayberry, sumac, and greenbrier. As part of the CR agreement, the Weber family is allowed to use and maintain a mowed footpath, which runs parallel to the southern lot line for access. And then there's a cleared area which we saw for use of storage of beach and boating items, and then the bench at the west end of the beach path. And they're still maintained and being used regularly. Overall, vegetation on the lot is a mix of native and invasive vegetation. The invasive species occur most densely along the edges of pathways and cleared areas, and at times are up to 80% of the total vegetation cover. In and around the wetland itself, the invasive plant cover decreases significantly to only about 0 to 5%. And the invasive species that we are noted on site include bittersweet, autumn olive, shrub honeysuckle, multiflora rose, and border privet, with a lot of greenbrier, which is a native but can be an aggressive species mixed in. So our proposal is to manage the invasive vegetation and restore the native vegetation within the project area. Our goals and objectives are written out on page 6 of our land management plan, basically to enhance the integrity of the resource area buffer zone, ensuring it provides functions as defined under the Mass Wetlands Protection Act and Town of Chatham's protection regulations. The area that we're managing, that we're showing on green on our management plan, is approximately 25,000 square feet, but I want to make clear to the commission that we are not removing 25,000 square feet of vegetation. We're selectively removing invasive vegetation from within that 25,000 square foot area. We want to increase and protect the existing vertical layers of vegetation, and replant native vegetation as appropriate to fill in any gaps where voids might be left after invasive species are managed, and then to monitor and address the health of the plants through the project course of the project. Moving on to page 8 of our land management plan, we've listed a work protocol, how we'll be accessing the site, and that's also showing on our vegetation management plan. So we will be bringing equipment to the site via the path accessible from David's Lane, running parallel to the southern property line. Equipment that we will be using on site will include a low impact, low ground pressure tracked excavator, as well as a tracked skid steer loader. Basically just to remove the invasive vegetation and bring it up to a brush can that will be staged further up the path. As we're using the equipment, it will all be staged in the boat storage clearing to minimize the amount of travel back and forth up the path. All the equipment will be removed from the buffer zone at the end of each workday and staged in the upland portions of the property at 20 David's Lane. We're going to start by removing the invasive species along the edge of the southern pathway, as we've denoted on this plan. Access the rest of the project area will be through that boat and beach storage area, which is permitted by the CR agreement with Chatham Conservation Foundation. Once we remove the plants along the edge, that will create space for us to further access the project. We'll bring machinery in only as needed, so we'll minimize the amount of machinery needed. I suspect that once we get through the thick edge and into the inner portions, most of that work will be done by hand, and we'll be simply carrying it out, staging it, stacking it, and the machinery will be bringing it up out of the project area. We've proposed, or what we're suspecting or putting in our plan, and we've written this into the vegetation restoration process, is that once we reached 80% control, we would be replanting anywhere from 10 to 20 trees and up to 300 shrubs. Though the exact number I feel will be determined once the invasive plants have been removed, and we'd be happy to meet with Nikki or with any of the commissioners out at the site to really determine what we need to put back in that area, because it's so thick and dense right now. It's really hard for us to judge until we open it up and get in. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the project or the plan. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Teresa. Questions? While people are thinking about it and looking for their raise hand button, one thing we spoke about, and thank you for yesterday, it was incredibly helpful to be able to walk this site and view it in detail. So we had talked about to add the conservation restriction area to the site plan so that
One of the things that's very complicated about this are the overlapping and intersecting property rights that exist in this area. So it would be helpful for us to understand exactly which portion of this is subject to a conservation restriction. And I'd also ask that you add, and I think it's there, but it's not called out, the property boundaries. So where the Weber and Brickman properties, what the boundaries of those are. And I think you had mentioned that there's apparently an agreement between the two landowners as to oversight over this project. I haven't seen that. So if you could email, get a copy of that to Nikki, that would be great. Appreciate that. And hands have started to go up. So let me start with Bob Del Vecchio.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi.
When we were walking the beach yesterday, I noticed at the top of the coastal bank there were a couple of voids, look like maybe animal passageways. Looks like, you know, just a little bit of erosion starting. When you clear that area, will you be planting in those areas just to kind of stabilize those areas? There weren't many, maybe 2 or 3.
Yes, we can absolutely do that. We're not removing any vegetation from the face of the coastal bank, except with the exception of there's a little bit of bittersweet, which will be selectively cut and treated. And then all of the existing vegetation, including the rugosa rose, although it's not native, it's certainly there and holding that bank. It does appear that the bank slumped a little bit at some point. You can definitely see the beach elevation in this area had dropped based on the bench that we looked at. The bank acts as a natural sediment source, and we want it to continue to do that. But we can plant any voids on the bank. I would probably just plant them with bayberry, which would be the most appropriate species for that area.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, Bob?
No, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Terry.
My question is more of a general question. When are we cutting? I first of all, I apologize. I didn't make it there yesterday, and I had intended to, but I couldn't make it. So this question is probably self-evident if I was there. But does the part of the process entail cutting down trees to get at access and remove and clean out what's we're trying to pull out?
No, there's a very thick edge. There is some cherry and some some sumac at the edge, but then it very quickly transitions into 100% bittersweet climbing over shrub honeysuckle. So I think we'll be able to remove that and not disturb any of the, like, for instance, there's one cherry tree at the edge that will remain in place. As we get in there, we may have to do some regenerative pruning. If vines have girdled a branch or something like that, we'll do some regenerative pruning. That's typical of all invasive species management projects, but there's no tree removal proposed in this area. Okay,
then I have a general question, but relative to cutting down trees that do a process, but we'll wait for another project when you bring that up. So thank you. I'm all set.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Yes, Bob, go ahead.
Just a comment. It looks like a fantastic project. A lot of restoration. I can't see why we would not look favorably upon this.
I agree. It's great. It's a good one. We're happy to see it.
So this is Nikki. My only comment is that, I agree with Bob. It's obviously great to restore the area. I just want it to be clear to the property owner that all of this restoration does not count towards any mitigation for any future proposed projects. This is completely separate from any project, and if any, building or anything needed to be done on the property, this does not count towards mitigation.
Understood.
Okay.
Yep. And one other thing I wanted to point out is the area where the conservation restriction is held is actually shown on both THAD's site plan and our site plan. On THAD's, it's a line in green, and on our site plan that we're looking on the screen, it printed out as sort of a lighter yellow color. but that is the area of the actual CR. But I do see that it is not labeled, so I will update that and make sure that that's labeled so it's clear.
Oh, okay. I thought that yellow line might have been the property boundary.
No, I think the property boundary is a little bit more to the north, and it's just slightly off screen. You can see it where you see north 52, 48, 29 east, 59, 40. That's the in the corner bound. That's the property line. And I do believe it's showing clearly on Thad's site plan, but we will denote it on our site plan as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else? Anybody else? Questions, comments? Okay, so Teresa, if you can get this revised plan done in the next week or so, we can schedule this for the July 7th work session.
Perfect. Yes, we can make those changes and just add those notes and turn that around very quickly.
Okay, and we get and then Nikki will pass that out to everybody, and we'll all have the final set to review at the work session. So with that, is there a motion to continue 300 Stage Neck Road to July the 7th?
Move to continue to July 7th.
Clark, second.
Roll call vote for 300 Stage Neck Road. Commissioner Rawls?
Aye.
Del Vecchio?
Aye.
Kitts?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Latin?
Aye.
Sullivan?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That's unanimous, 7-0. Thank you very much. Looking forward to approving and moving forward on this project. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, that brings us to 32 Old Saltworks Road, James and Jennifer Mock, map 13L, parcel C32, SE 10-3496, new dwelling, pool, and shorefront protection.
Good morning, this is Taria McGrail with Coastal Engineering, here to represent the owners of 32 Old Saltworks. So this property is a developed residential property that abuts Bassing Harbor. The resource areas on the property include salt marsh, coastal beach, coastal bank, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. It's a velocity zone, elevation 13. The property is also in the Pleasant Bay ACEC, and the proposed activities on the property are not located in any NHESP mapped estimated habitats. Currently, the property is improved with a dwelling that was constructed in 1957. There's timber beach access stairs and concrete driveway and patio, and then also areas of concrete that are remnants from the property's historical use as the Chatham Naval Air Station. And then also closer down by the water, there's a concrete shed. We also label it as a pillbox, and that's also part of the historical use of the property. The proposed project includes reconstruction of the dwelling that's currently located within 20 feet of the top of the coastal bank. It's going to be reconstructed at a position that is upland of the 50-foot coastal bank buffer. And at closest proximity, it is 54 feet from the top of the coastal bank. To the east of the proposed dwelling and also upland of the 50-foot buffer, there's a proposed pool with pool patio proposed, and to the south of the dwelling, the applicant is proposing a patio. The proposed patio is located within the footprint of the existing dwelling that will be removed. Due to a portion of the patio falling within the 0 to 50-foot buffer to the top of the coastal bank, the applicant is proposing to install a dry-laid pervious patio. And as indicated on the coverage tables presented, this portion of the patio is approximately 93 square feet. And as I mentioned, it's going to be pervious. And the reduction in coverage within the 0 to 50 buffer, this portion of patio, there's still a 91% reduction in coverage in that 50-foot buffer due to the proposed site improvements. So by reconstructing the house at a location that's further from the top of coastal bank and outside of the 50-foot buffer, overall building coverage is going to be reduced by 1,120 square feet. This represents a substantial reduction in building coverage in the area. Additionally, overall site coverage is going to be reduced in the 0 to 50-foot buffer by 1,000 square feet. And then if we look at the overall number within the entire 100-foot buffer from the top of the coastal bank, we're looking at a net reduction of 253 square feet. So overall, we're reducing coverage on the site within the buffer zones by 253 square feet. With this proposal, the proposed sewage disposal system will be located upland of all buffer zones beyond 100 feet from the coastal bank. So this is an improvement. Landscape areas that are disturbed by reconstruction of the dwelling will be restored with a high fescue drought tolerant grass that will be low maintenance and native. Additionally, if you look along the southern property line within the 0 to 100-foot buffer, there's 9 native plants proposed, and these are a variety of black oak, eastern red cedar, and also American holly. So this is an additional improvement that's proposed by the applicant. Don Monroe from Coastal Engineering is also here today, and he's going to describe in more detail the shorefront stabilization effort that's proposed on the plans.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah. Hi, everybody hear me?
Yep.
Let's see. Try to turn. Yeah, there I am. Would I be able to share screen? Is that possible, Nikki?
Sure. Yeah, Nikki can give up that. And you take it over.
Okay, I gotta find it on my open share. I think is it labeled as share tray in this particular application? Okay. All right. Hold on. Give me a second here. I'm trying to. Nobody can. Can you see my screen yet?
Not yet.
Open share tray. Share. Okay, hold on. I'm almost there. It's a new application. Still no.
That's yes, we got it. You just need to shift over if you want to, and maybe zoom in on the bank a bit so we can.
Okay.
Profiles are not showing up yet. You need to come down a little. There you go. Okay.
Okay. So you can see the fiber roll array in the section view, section AA, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So yes, this is an unstable coastal bank right now. It has eroded over the last number of years. Back in 2010, there was a proposal for the previous owners for fiber roll array, and that particular proposal made by Moran Engineering. This dimension right here, which we're showing now, is 25 feet to the top of the coastal bank. On the Moran plan, that dimension is 32 feet. So we've had about a 7-foot change in top of coastal bank retreat over the last 11 so years. So given the fact that the bank is pretty not densely vegetated, given the fact that the owners to the northeast over in this location have a coastal engineered structure protecting their property, and the fact that the neighbors to the southwest have a fiber roll array underneath their nourishment, which is roughly 5 feet off the property line, it behooves these owners to do something to protect the erosion happening, to protect their upland. So the fact that also the existing home is a pre-78 home, I think it should be noted that the owners are opting to do a soft solution in this location to start off with, but also I think it's very important to make a note also that not only are they protected under the Wetlands Protection Act under the pre-78 standard for coastal banks, they also are moving the house back. Even though it is a new house, it's still a pre-developed pre-78 property. So the fact that they're doing two things under the prongs of what the commission likes to see in their alternatives, we're exercising two of those alternatives right off the bat by doing the fiber roll array, moving and building a house that's further back from the top of coastal bank, roughly 50 feet. And you can see that dimension here. So we're hopeful that the success of the southeast fiber roll array would also be successful in this location as well. Although we still want the commission to, during deliberation, make certain considerations that these property owners are doing two things to try to protect their investment in their upland by the fiber roll array and relocation of the house to a further distance from the top of the bank. The fiber rolls are definitely a soft solution. There's indication in the Wetlands Protection Act that they are biodegradable, so they're a natural form of protection. We do plan on planting, putting material over the top of them to protect them from UV degradation, which is this material between the top of the rolls and the finished grade, planted with beach grass, beach plum, bayberry, and those sorts of type of plants that are consistent with other areas along this particular bank. I did notice on a site visit, though, that this area here has just been nourished with material, but not really planted. So the intent here is to really plant this relatively heavily to get a good root system to grow down into the fiber rolls. We are tying into the existing concrete structure here. We opted not to remove this primarily because it's on both properties and it's acting as a return for the neighbors to the northeast where their concrete wall comes in here. It also will act as a return into the upland area for the fiber roll array. So we'll tie the fiber rolls in, knit them to the back here and then to the front there against the existing structure that's there. We also are holding 5 feet under the current application, although I would like to make aware to the commission that we've been in correspondence with the neighbors. The neighbors talked to me directly on the phone. Our crew went out and located the edge of the fiber rolls that are on this particular property. They would like us to tie into those fiber rolls, which would mean we'd be coming back with a revised plan showing that connection. We'd like to work with the commission to figure out how we would go about paperwork-wise doing that tie-in so that there's no gap. The owners are supportive of the project as long as we can tie in, and we told them that we would certainly work with them and the commission to get to that end where we tie in fiber rolls on their property and beyond the stairway right in this location right here. So I don't see that as a problem to tie in. I think that's a great idea. We would bring the vegetation right up to the property line after we tie into the fiber rolls that are to the southeast. So other than those descriptions, we meet the performance standards. We aren't doing anything but trying to protect the vertical buffer protection of the upland on a pre-78 home with the fiber rolls. Any questions would be certainly entertained, and thank you for your time.
All right.
If I could, sorry, could I just jump in and I just have a couple other items to add.
Sure.
So as described by Dawn, the shorefront work is going to enhance and stabilize the bank. The proposed, and then as far as the upland work goes, the proposed activities, I just wanted to point out again, the major reduction in coverage in that 50-foot buffer, which is 1,000 square feet. And then overall within the 0 to 100, it's 253 square feet. What I really wanted to mention is that we are scheduled to appear before the Zoning Board of Appeals on June 24th for this project. So we'd like to respectfully request consideration by the Commission for submission of a letter to the Zoning Board of Appeals that indicates that this project, as discussed today, could be conditioned for approval or a letter to that effect that you feel comfortable with. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Don, I just wanted to go back for a second and pick up on the abutting properties. Did you say that they both have fiber roll arrays underneath the planted? Well, on one side it's recent nourishment, on the other side there's some well planted and thriving beach grass that might be on top of it. Is that correct?
Let's see, partially correct, Chair. To the northeast, that's a coastal engineered structure project, and there's a concrete wall that ties into the pillbox. Oh. So I don't believe there's fiber rolls on that property.
Okay.
If there is, we don't need to tie into those because we already have a functioning return by leaving the pillbox in. I think if we looked at taking the pillbox out, but it's such a substantial foundation that it would really disturb the coastal bank in that location, not only on the owner's property, but the neighbor's property. So it's more in line with leaving it there is better to tie into it the way the neighbors did with their concrete wall with the fiber rolls. To the southwest, they do have fiber rolls and they wrap around the stairway and come within 5 feet of our applicant's property line. And that's the area where we'd like to tie in to the existing fiber rolls.
Okay, so the area on either side of the stairway on the southwest, is that owned by the adjacent property owner, or is it like an association's area? Because it connects to a pathway from the street that looks like it's a semi-public or a association kind of pathway.
So yeah, there are 3 property owners that own the property, and they have a property manager. His name is Jim O'Connell, and he's their representative that I spoke to. And I'm not sure if there's association access. There might be, although the property that's protected, there's one building there. It looks like it could be multiple people live at the building maybe, and that's why it's 3 owners, but I'm not sure of the specifics there. But Jim did tell me that there were 3 property owners that are supportive of the proposal as long as we can tie in, because they don't want a gap, and nor do the Mocs want a gap. And I don't think the commission would want a gap, because that would just allow funneling erosion to take place right at the property line.
Okay, and so has this property, has 32 done any recent nourishment?
No, actually, the Mocs took ownership of the property. The previous owners had an order of conditions issued in 2010. That was the engineer was Moran Engineering. They never implemented or installed the fiber rolls, so I think that was closed out as not performed.
Okay.
So there was never any real requirement for nourishment. So they did suffer 11 years of erosion, approximately 7 foot of loss, specifically concentrated near the fiber roll array to the southeast. So we do have evidence that is problematic, because there hasn't been any protection on this property. So I think we can rectify that by tying in.
Okay, and what is proposed in terms of once the fiber rolls are in terms of nourishment? How 6 inches? Is that what or is that just the one time?
I would say right now it should be just the one-time coverage, 6 to 8 inches of material over the fiber rolls, in order to establish the plant material to take hold and then grow into the fiber rolls. The beach nourishment aspect of it, because it's covered with some salt marsh and things like that, I wouldn't want to necessarily see an annual nourishment. But if you needed something like monitoring or something, that might be more appropriate in this location, so that if there is a loss of beach, which I don't see is necessarily the case. I see that we've lost coastal bank, but the neighboring property has done some nourishment over their fiber rolls, but they haven't planted it. So I'm not sure that we could get a good, accurate determination as to what might be an appropriate volume, because there really aren't any cesium transects there. So it'd be more appropriate, I think, for kind of in the order, address it maybe through a monitoring effort or some sort, maybe.
Yeah, something through monitoring, and it'd be helpful to agree on what a trigger might be. Do you know why they haven't planted?
I think it's because the nourishment was done late in the season, probably because every contractor was so busy and the COVID shut down some operations, and then it also affected the availability of plugs and culms, to the point where many projects did not get planted, and you need to plant them like in early April. You just can't plant. And then the plug cost to try to plant later, because you can plant plugs, the price is like almost 7 times the culm price. So I think people are opting to put in their orders for fall planting because your summer events, storm events may not damage your nourishment. So I think that's probably maybe the intent next door.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
They suffered the same thing we did. A lot of properties just didn't get planted for the availability problem that we had with material.
Okay. Let me open, look, questions from other commission members. Okay, Bob Rawls, you're up.
Yes, just wondering whether or not there are any trees within the resource area being removed due to the project.
We have not presented a tabulation showing number of trees removed, but there's large areas of concrete that are on the site at this time. And if you look at the plan just to the south of the proposed pool patio, you can see one of those large areas of concrete, and then it also continues up towards the north. What we've tried to do with this application is cite the improvements beyond where we're showing, upland of where we're showing the edge of clearing. So we've made an effort to not have to remove any trees. There are a few trees in the area of the proposed pool that will need to come out, but we are, if you could note that down on the, I guess that would be the southeast corner of the property there near that pillbox, we're making an effort to leave those nice native trees that are there today and protect those throughout construction. So there's at least one tree in the pool area that I can see is identified on the plan as being proposed for removal. And then if you note to the south along that property line, we're proposing 1, 2 black oaks, and then 4 eastern red cedars, and then the 3 American hollies to support the application and provide some native species in that area and also within the buffer zone.
Okay, so on the other side of the property from where you're planting those trees, again, tell me, it looked like there were several large trees there, but how many of those are coming out?
On the south side?
Well, I'm not good with south and north and these
sorry.
things, but if you're looking at the front of the house to the right side of the property.
Front of the house to the right. So I see on the plan, 2 trees somewhat near that exist that are shown in gray that are near the red dashed 50-foot buffer line. Those are indicated to stay, and then to the south of that, we're infilling with the new vegetation.
I'm not sure if I understood your answers. So next to
I'll just jump in here and say one of the problems, Taria, that we have is that the trees that are proposed for removal aren't flagged, aren't identified on the site.
Okay.
So, as I was walking around, it was hard to tell which were going to be staying and which were being proposed for removal.
I wonder if on this application, if it would be appropriate to flag those trees for viewing that would come out, if that would help.
Yes, that would be helpful.
Well, it also would help just to indicate them on the plan so that it's on the record.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I can certainly do that. I can update the plan so that you can see them more clearly.
And in the rear of the house, there's this very, very large mature tree. And I couldn't tell whether it was going to come out.
That one is going to come out. It's in the area of the proposed dwelling, and as the house shifts back to be further from the coastal bank, that tree will have to be removed.
Do you know what species that tree is?
I don't. Is Rob Calderaro, are you on the call? Let me see if our landscape consultant can help.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I believe that is a black oak.
That's a bit of a shame because it is the largest black oak I think I've seen.
Well, there's another additional black oak on the front side of the property to the opposite side that we are keeping closer to the bank. It's also accompanied by 2 nice cedars as well.
Is the black oak that the large one that I'm so concerned about, is that within the 100-foot line?
I believe it is.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I suppose you would make the case that there's no alternative, but I will ask the question anyway. To removing that tree, it's just an incredible specimen.
Is that the one that's currently just by the in front of the existing front of the house, the driveway? Is that the one?
What I call the back of the house.
Yeah, I'm confused by what.
Yeah.
What's the back? Let me see. I'm going to try to see if I have a picture of it, but I can't share the screen of it.
Yeah, I took a picture of it as well.
Yeah. It's the one that's in the current front of the house by the parking area that's kind of surrounded by all of those old rhododendrons that I assume are also all coming out. Yeah, it would be helpful to have this, to have some more specificity about what's proposed for removal and what's staying, both in terms of flagging them on the site and marking them on the plan.
And in the same vein, I guess if that tree does come out, it's, you know, the question that occurs to me is whether that is worth a 1 tree addition. I mean, you can't put a sapling in to replace that tree and have it ever, in all likelihood, ever replace it. So anyway, it's a question in my mind, what is that tree worth in terms of replacement value?
To that comment, there are 2 black oak replacements proposed within the buffer zone to help offset that loss, and then also the eastern cedars, and there's 4 of those.
Agreed.
It's certainly something that we can look into further.
Yeah, need to know what is the size of those proposed plantings.
Okay.
What is the size of those oaks and those cedars?
And just one other question, is there a pool fence?
There's no pool fence proposed. This one's going to have an auto cover.
Okay. All right, that's what I have.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Other questions or comments? Bob Del Vecchio, you have the floor.
Okay, the proposed patio on the south side of the proposed new building, can that be shifted away from the 50?
The architect and the applicants have looked at various locations for the patio, and what it comes down to is this location was chosen because if you look at the position of the existing house, it's looking out over the water, and it's positioned out closer to the coastal bank. I previously mentioned that there's those large trees in the area of that shed that we're calling the pillbox. So by shifting the house back, the views that are currently enjoyed by the existing house location are drastically reduced. The proposed patio position provides the owners with not as good of views as they're enjoying right now, but it's a compromise. It's a position that still gives them a location to have some activity, but also be able to enjoy somewhat of the view that they have right now. And they really, we've gone through different options on types of patios, and they feel comfortable with proposing a more pervious patio in that location due to the resource area nearby. And also if we look at I know Dawn had mentioned previously about the portion of the coastal bank that's seen some recent erosion, about 7 feet. And, you know, it's interesting if you look at that, that's really the portion of the patio that's now falling within that 50-foot area, is that area of the coastal bank that's seen some erosion. So, you know, really going forward with this effort that provides enhanced stabilization of the coastal bank and ties into the two neighbors to the north and the south. I think that's a very valuable portion of the project to help protect the upland area. But mainly the position of the patio is just, it's very important to the applicant as far as maintaining somewhat of an semblance of some of the enjoyment that they have of the property now. Another recent development that has come up is the neighbor to the east. There's some invasive species that are located between the two properties on that eastern property line. And so what may be coming before you in some time, we're not completely sure yet, but there may be an effort for some more invasive management along the 50 to 100 foot buffer up between those two properties. But that's something that we can look into further if that would help provide additional environmental benefit for the commission to help look more positively upon the proposed application.
Through the chair, it's Dawn.
Yes, Dawn.
Just to help Bob a little bit, that's the reason why I brought up a couple of the items that I think would be really important for you to use during your deliberation. We're looking at a very small square footage that's dry laid patio for certainly their enjoyment, but at the same time, I think the applicants should be commended on the fact that they have a pre-78 condition. They could build a rock revetment. And they may have to go through an appeal, but they certainly could do that because the erosion rate warrants it, and the dimension from the existing home to the top of bank is now 7 feet closer than it was in the original application for fiber rolls. So those prongs that I pointed out at the beginning, I wanted them not to be taken as necessarily leverage, but really should be taken as an avenue for allowing a small square footage of a dry laid patio to be put in this location, when in fact different things could be taking place with this particular piece of property. But I think you got some conscientious applicants that want to do a couple of things that they wouldn't necessarily have to do, but they're electing to do. Moving the house back further away from the bank, number one, with a pre-78 home, not putting a revetment or application for a revetment, but going fiber roll. So those two prongs really are something that the commission, especially this commission, has looked for from applicants before they exercise the coastal bank clause, where they've got a pre-78 home status and go right to revetment. So that I'm hoping that, Bob, you'll be able to see it that way and maybe overcome the small portion of a dry laid patio that's still in the 0 to 50. Thanks for letting me speak.
Sure. And what about the stepping stones between the proposed patio and the pole patio? What's the spacing and just grass in between?
Yes, just grass in between. Rob, are you available to provide more details?
The space, there are 24-inch wide and spacings between 6 and 8 inches between.
6 to 8 inches of grass area between the stepping stones.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And the patio around the pool, that's also pervious?
That's correct.
Okay, good.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Just following up on Bob's comment about the proposed patio that intrudes. I mean, I do take the points that have been made about moving the existing structure further back from the coastal bank and primarily out of the NDZ and the opting for the soft solution. The one thing that strikes me about this is that it looks to me like you have lawn going right up to the top of the coastal bank, and I don't see any vegetated buffer strip along the top of the coastal bank. And rather than, might that be something that the homeowners would consider as mitigation for the impacts, which are decreased, but they're still, nonetheless, they are still there. Protecting that bank from the top side with some sort of vegetated buffer strip will also helps to prevent any further erosion.
I see Terry is nodding her head in affirmation. I think that's a great point. Yes, I'm sure that the owners would certainly entertain a buffer strip. And maybe you could, I'm not sure what the typical width has been in Chatham. Is it anywhere like what, between 6 to 10 feet, something of that nature?
Well, we'd like to,
more is better.
10 feet is really nice. Provides more adequate protection, but yeah, I mean, they vary, but I think anything smaller than 6 just tends to be, we see a straggly line of single shrubs.
Yeah, I get it.
And that doesn't do much.
We will bring this back to the owners for sure, and the team.
Thank you, appreciate that. Other questions or comments?
This is Nikki. Oh, sorry, you can go first, Clark.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
I just am a little concerned with the whole, is this reconstruction of a dwelling versus is this just completely a new building? So I don't know if DEP has ever defined what reconstruction means. It's just hard to say that this will be a building that should be protected by a revetment in the future if need be, because you have every opportunity, you're tearing down, rebuilding, so you have every opportunity to get it as far away from the bank as possible, so that an engineered structure wouldn't be needed. By the way, I'm 100% fine with the fiber rolls and nourishment. I think that's great and that's needed. And I just don't want the only condition or the only concern with the patio. It's pretty much been addressed, but I don't want the potential for the patio to fall in to be a reason to do an engineered revetment or anything. So if someone could just address if they know if DEP has specifically called out what reconstruction qualifies as.
Okay, it's a great question, Nikki, and I'm going to let Mike Ford address that in a moment. But just for context for our newer members who haven't seen this come up before, as you know, the Wetlands Protection Act in 1978 said basically no more revetments for buildings that are not in existence as of the date of this legislation. That's 1978. And there's a rule from DEP, and we are required to put in our orders of condition a provision that says that when a new building is built within 100 feet of a coastal bank, there will not be an opportunity or something along those lines. A revetment will not be permitted to protect that building. The question obviously revolves around what is a pre-existing building and what happens when you rebuild it, especially when you rebuild it in a different location. Does that count as reconstruction, which is allowed and entitles you to a revetment, or is it something different that would not? And it's a thorny issue, and I'm gonna let Mike handle that because he knows way more about it than I do.
Madam Chair, Mike Ford, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Thank you. I also represent the Mocs. And frankly, it was my recommendation to the Mocs and to the development team to put this right out in the narrative so that it was on the table for the commission to consider. Because my experience, including in Chatham, is that coastal engineering structures have been regularly allowed to protect houses that were built post 1978, provided that the applicant shows that there was a house that predated 78 that had been replaced by the house that was now seeking protection from erosion. And the commission was not required that there was any finding when that house was built that the house was reconstructed.
I'm going to interrupt you 1 second, Mike. We're getting a lot of feedback and background noise. Could everybody please mute themselves? Thank you. Perfect.
So it was my recommendation and is my practice in other communities to always put that question out for the commission. So it's on the table when they consider a new house to make a determination that it is reconstruction, if that's their determination, so that if and when that event came, certainly would be well beyond my lifetime, but somebody will be dealing with that question. And to the extent that it's in the record and was looked at and determined, I felt was important. And so this is brought to your attention. That's the background. Now, as to what reconstruction means, first of all, 310 CMR 10 has a list of definitions, as you know. I think they're listed in 10.04 or 10.4. Reconstruction, unfortunately, is not one of the defined terms, as you might guess. I've looked at a number of decisions, and frankly, it's discretionary with the Conservation Commission. I've found in talking to folks at DEP that part of the genesis of this phrase, including reconstructions of such buildings, was frankly an incentive to get people, when they were looking at a house that could be moved back, that it be an incentive to move it back, and that not giving up that right to armor the bank right there because they were entitled to armor the bank, but to allow options to property owners who did have a generous lot, like the Mocs, to move the house back and to pursue a soft solution, but not necessarily to give up that right. And so it's a bit of an incentive clause, I think, is the way it's been used. As I say, my experience in Chatham is that they really have never made these findings, but they have regularly allowed, when somebody showed that there was a house that predated the house that's there that's trying to be protected, that there's a reconstruction. And I think that the commission needs to look at it, make your finding, and then it's clear on the record. And so that's the genesis as to why this is in the narrative. That was my recommendation.
I appreciate that you did that and brought that issue forward, particularly since it has been the practice, although it's never been exactly clear what the guidance or the authority is for how the practice has evolved over time. And given that we have a number of new members, it seems like a good moment to wrestle with this question and see if we can, at least on a case-by-case basis, make very clear findings about whether the commission finds that this is a proposed reconstruction or not. So appreciate bringing it forward.
Janet, can I comment?
One moment, Tom. Yes, you can. Go ahead, Mike.
One other comment. Reconstruction in a zoning context is interpreted much more narrowly than I've seen it interpreted in this phrase. Reconstruction in a zoning context generally means substantially in the same location and the same size of the dwelling that you're raising and then building a new one. And I haven't seen that type of strict scope be applied to reconstruction under this section 310 CMR 10.22. So, you know, if you go to the dictionary, you're much liable to find a definition that's closer to the zoning context, which I'm used to all the time. Or I get that same narrow scope when I'm before an historic commission, and they want to see a reconstruction. They want you to get right down to the same architecture. never mind footprint and location. But this one seems to have carried a different context and been interpreted more broadly, given the intent of the statute, which is let's move people away from the water and let's prevent, if we can, even for pre-78 houses, coastal engineering structures, or at least delay them.
Yeah. Even if it's a pre-78 house, you still have to show that there's a urgent need to protect the structure, and as Nikki pointed out, not necessarily to protect hardscaping on the property. But let Tom weigh in here. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I was just gonna say I respectfully disagree with Mike on this. The plain meaning of the language is very straightforward, and it's even carried over in Regulation 1.04 of the Chatham wetlands law, where, for example, when it defines activity, it distinguishes between reconstruction and expansion. And this house is clearly an expansion. And I think the zoning interpretation that it has to be the same style, the same design, the same square footage and so on is probably the more appropriate one, although I will agree that I couldn't find any authority other than invoking the usual, plain meaning of the wording type of analysis. The other questions I had, I noticed that I also was wondering why they couldn't pull the patio back from the no disturb zone. But I note that according to their calculation table, there's 276 square feet of intrusion into the no disturb zone, although I have to admit I haven't figured out where all of it is. So this is, this does a lot that normally we would be concerned about, and that I share the concerns about the patio intrusion. I think there may be some other, either the calculation table has an error, or the patio is a hell of a lot bigger than it looks to get up to 276 square feet. And also, I understand why Mike said, put it in the narrative, and I think they deserve credit. That's a good thing to do. But I think that the assertions made on Section 4 of the project description are so over the top that, and they're basically irrelevant to what we would be deciding in any case. I don't see any reason for us to do anything in terms of interpreting or adopting the language that they've stuck in there, because I think it flies in the face of the plain meaning of the statute. And so that's straightforward for me. Okay. Now, I did have one question about note 3 under the erosion control notes, which is that says the sediment control barrier shall be installed prior to start of construction and maintained until stabilization and revegetation of disturbed areas. I assume that implies that at that point it would be removed, but I was wondering what the standards would be for removal of the sediment control barrier, since it says until stabilization and revegetation. I was wondering how do they interpret that phrase because it's alleged to be the standard by which the sediment control barrier is either left in place or removed. That's it.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Through the chair
I'd like to
on
start with you to respond, and then I'll come to Don for his, and then Tarja.
Okay.
Mike, did you want to respond to?
Yes, I did. I think Tarja needs to correct the amount of coverage that the patio is in the 0 to 50. I don't think it's 276, but I think she can do that. The other thing I'd suggest is that, with all due respect to Tom's view in terms of being a strict constructionalist with the word reconstruction, to take that view leaves the property owner in the situation where, we'll just come back and redo the house that's there, and we'll apply for a coastal engineering structure, because otherwise we're going to make a very significant investment in a parcel of property. We're going to do the things the conservation wants us to do, soft solution, and move the house back. And yet we're putting ourselves in a situation where, if you take Tom's view, we would never be able to come in and even apply in the future for a coastal engineering structure. And I don't think that's the way it was intended, nor has it been utilized in that fashion by this commission over many, many years, or have I seen it interpreted that strictly at DEP. So I just wanted to get that on the record. The other thing is, I think there's some confusion with respect to Tom's figures, that we're 276 on the plus side remaining in the 0 to 50. I don't think that's accurate, but I defer to Tari on that, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I'm just going off your table, so maybe you, like you said, you need to correct it. Maybe it's an error, but
Yes, yep. Go ahead, Tari.
that's what it said.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll certainly take a look at that and provide clarification on those numbers.
Okay. Thank you. Nikki, you have...
So I think it might be helpful to get an idea of how likely you think you might be proposing a coastal engineering structure in the future. Is this just, just in case wording, or are you planning in 5 years to propose something?
Yeah.
So I think the intent is a good thing to discuss.
Yeah, great question, and I'll defer, Madam Chair, to Don Monroe, who's the expert with respect to the need for that. But I can tell you in my discussions with AMOC, there is absolutely no intent, present intent, to plan a coastal engineering structure, which is why they're going with the fiber rolls. They have a lot of confidence that they can connect to the neighbors to the southwest and connect to the pillbox to the east, and do the monitoring that Don offered. And if it shows in the monitoring you need some nourishment to start the nourishment program, that would maintain that bank. And that's what they hope is the future, and that's their intent. But obviously I defer to Don as to whether he sees a need for it looking forward.
Go ahead, Don. Do you have a...
Sure. Through the chair. First,
Yes.
on Tom's question about the silt barrier, that's typically removed once the planting is done on the coastal bank. That's only there to protect the salt marsh and beach grass that's on the beach during the construction activities. And it's not intended to be left there longer than once the last plug of grass gets planted into the bank, then it would be removed. So that's really that function of that, is to protect the other resource areas during construction. Then as far as a coastal engineered structure, I've been doing this a long time, and I have not ever seen let's see, I shouldn't say never, because that's too explicit. Typically DEP, through appeals or even other towns, as a matter of fact, just over the last couple of years, we've gotten a number of houses that have been reconstructions and moved in further away from coastal banks, not necessarily in Chatham. I have had experience in the past in Chatham, but just recently, Falmouth and Barnstable, Eastham, they've all gone along with DEP's interpretation, and their intent behind the reconstruction is that it's typically meant as a developed piece of property prior to 1978 with a building is afforded the protection under the coastal bank regulation as a pre-78 pre-developed property. I know that doesn't sound like the definition of reconstruction, but because of the very nature of the fact that some towns want a person to move their house back, and if they move their house back, it could be interpreted that's in a new location in a new building. Now commission has required them to obviate their rights. I don't think that was the intent, and I have talked to many engineers up at the state level. That was never the intent behind this pre-78 status, that it had to be the exact same building. I think Mike Ford is right on track with what he's saying, is that it gives the owner impetus to do the other things necessary to meet the prongs the A and the B and the C under the pre-78 status to prove that we've done everything we can with this particular piece of property. We still have a problem with erosion. We still want the rights to put the coastal engineered structure in. Please don't take our right away just because we did all the things you told us to do. That's what I'm afraid of in terms of Tom's interpretation of reconstruction. So thank you.
But John, Nikki's question was.
Yeah, right. In the future. Yeah, I got it, Mike. Sorry, I was. So in terms of the future, Nikki, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do know sea levels rising is going to affect every shorefront piece of property. So I would say that over the long haul, it would be in the interest of the owner to try to maintain what they are going to propose, what we're proposing, which is the fiber roll. But I, as an engineer, can't say that the fiber rolls will work when this becomes a velocity zone, which it might in the future. We've seen other areas where they were not velocity zones, and now they are velocity zones, and fiber rolls do not do well in that environment. They are currently okay in this environment right now. I would say, given the track record, I can't go on record saying that it's going to happen in 10 years. I don't know, but I think that that really isn't the question. The question is, do these people have the right to do what the neighbors did next door, which is put in a vinyl wall in front of an existing concrete wall? The people to the southeast don't have the same luxury because their house is probably, who knows, like 300 feet back from the coastal bank. So they would never be threatened. But this is right on the cusp. And we already see evidence by the fact that they lost right in this corner, which is the closest corner to the existing structure, a loss of 7 feet in 11 years. To think that a fiber roll array may do the same thing as a coastal engineered structure and stop the erosion, I would not be a good engineer to say that that's the case. Under the maintenance of this, they could give it longevity and maybe it'll last 10, 15 years, which would be great. But beyond that, I would say we still need to provide them with what is their right currently with the existing building. They shouldn't lose that right by the fact that they're doing exactly what this commission has asked us to do on other properties in the past. Do something soft first, move the house if you can. They're doing both. So I would just plead with the commission to really consider that the commission might be putting themselves in harm's way by saying, well, do the fiber roll, move the house back, and we'll take your right away. Whoa. I don't know how far that'll go, but thanks for letting me be long-winded.
Thank you, Don. Got it. It is a tough question, and this is fun. We have an opportunity with this application to really think through the implications of what we decide. And I think that, I think that each case is so unique and driven by its own circumstances that trying to create and apply a broad rule would be problematic. It's problematic to have to do it each time, but I think it's in the interest of fairness and in the interest of upholding the purpose of the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw. I'll say the one thing that troubles me, because I too, Tom, have the same inclination, and it probably comes from too many years of zoning practice, but of adopting that a more formulaic approach. What was there, if it's in the same footprint, if it's expanded by no more than whatever, pick a number, 10%, it's considered a reconstruction. But this is a different, this is not, it's not regulating mass as zoning does. We're protecting the resource areas. And what really troubles me is the perversion of an outcome that would say to a homeowner, because your house is so close to the coastal bank right now, and it's clearly going to be in danger, they would be incentivized to build a revetment right now. And then later they can tear down the house and move it back. And we would have nothing to say about any of that. And so that strikes me as the absolute perverted outcome and not the way that this act was intended to be applied. So that's just what's in my mind and troubling me about the way that this could go. And that would just incentivize homeowners to do that, and that's not the right thing. Nikki, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so I agree with exactly what you just said. While I don't consider this by definition to be reconstruction in that zoning sense, it is clearly a pre-1978 developed lot. So, and I agree that we don't want people to decide to do the revetment instead of trying to move their house and trying the soft solutions. So I definitely see where people are coming from that. This was more of just a, like we said, this came up and it's a good time to discuss it. And try and, get a stance on it. I'm thinking that maybe we could definitely condition some things, that the patio does not count as, being at risk for loss. And that they need to do constant nourishment and planting and show that that is not working before any application comes before us for an engineered structure. So we can add those to the conditions, that they need to prove full and well and keep up on their nourishment and keep up on their plantings, and not come to us in 15 years when they haven't nourished since they put the fiber rolls in and say that, oh, that didn't work. So they just, in the future, I would, so keep documents, like you said, monitoring reports. And I think that can kind of, I think, make both sides happy that, you are trying to keep an engineered structure out, but we would also understand that if it's not working, and you did make the best effort, then, we would understand.
Yep, we have seen that before, and we've also seen cases where the best effort was not applied to the situation, and they ended up getting revetment anyway. But that's neither here nor there. This will come up when we will have to decide this at the point at which we review and approve the order of conditions, because that's what we're talking about here is the standard general condition that says that this property cannot apply for a coastal engineering structure in the future to protect this project. And that only applies if we determine that it's a new building. So food for thought for everybody to consider as we go forward with this. But at this point, what I have on my list for coming back is to identify the trees that are proposed for removal, both in the field and on the plan. Check and correct the square footage of the patio. What else, Nikki, do we have?
We need a zoning letter, Madam Chair.
A zoning letter.
The addition of a vegetated buffer strip and I believe a revised plan to show that these fiber rolls are tying into the neighbors.
Yep.
Also, Janet, if they can do some invasive species management on the east side, that would be lovely.
Okay, can you consider that as a possibility too? Okay. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anything else? So your zoning hearing is June the 24th.
It is here.
Yep. I think that what we're talking about here is various conditions that may or may not appear in the order of conditions, and how that will be constructed. Nikki, do you think you would have a problem writing a letter to ZBA that it's the view of the commission that it is approvable with conditions?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Those are to be determined. Okay. Then when do you?
Madam Chair.
Yep.
Rob Rawls, I just want to bring the attention back to that specimen black oak.
Yep. That needs to be flagged and identified, and we're going to want to know why.
So as far as the letter is concerned, I mean, in my own mind, I'm eagerly awaiting some sort of conclusion on that before I would support some sort of approval with conditions. I'm just letting you know.
Well, we could cut it close and continue this to June 23rd, which is the day before your zoning hearing. that would work. If you could do these changes in the next week.
Well, I defer to coastal. Most of them are in their category, so.
We could do the, we can work on the trees, flagging the trees and showing the trees on a plan. Dawn, and also we can look at the buffer strip and those improvements. The plan changes, I defer to Dawn. I know that there's going to be some coordination with the neighbor, but perhaps we can.
That's actually okay. The only thing that's driving the date is the tree issue.
Okay.
So if we gather back on the 23rd with that and focus on that, then we can continue later for whatever changes need to happen in terms of the coastal project, part of the project.
Right, and what you want to see from us on the tree issue, Madam Chair, is, okay, he's raised the issue. We've moved the house back. It puts us, those two collide. The tree needs to be removed on our plan. What's it worth? And you need a showing from us as to what we intend to do to replace it. And you would review that on the 23rd. I just want to make sure I understand the direction.
Bob, is that your understanding?
Well, the other way to approach this, of course, normally is there an alternative to where you position things and yet keep the tree? I don't know if there is. I don't know if there isn't, but that's for the design people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that, as well as assuming that we believe that there isn't an alternative, you're looking at, okay, what's the replacement for that specimen tree? Okay.
Yes, that's the two parts of that.
All
Is there an feasible alternative, and if not, what is the compensation?
Well, certainly if the zoning letter is hanging in the balance because of Bob's concern, then yes, the 23rd, so we could get back to address that now, because we really want to keep on that schedule. If we miss the 23rd, we're going to be pushed in August at zoning.
Right, so we can get that far and then pick up the rest of it in July.
Right.
Okay, that works. And with that, is there a motion to continue this to June 23rd?
Move to continue to June 23rd.
Clark, second.
Roll call vote for 32 Old Saltworks. Commissioner Rawls?
Aye.
Delvecchio?
Aye.
Kitts?
Aye.
Clark?
Aye.
Latin? I think you're muted, Karen. I don't know where she is. I'll come back. No, she's not muted. Well, all right. There you are. Is that an aye? Karen? Terry, what did you?
Aye.
Aye. I vote aye as well. So that would be either how you count it, 601. I think she was voting aye, but I won't write it down because I don't want to put it in her mouth. So it's still approved to June the 23rd. Oh, there you are. I see that. I didn't look up to see the. Okay. Aye. It's unanimous. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
We'll see you then.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. With that, everybody, I'm going to call a 5-minute pause to stretch our legs and refocus our eyes. And it's 11:43, 11:48. We'll be back. We will move quickly through the rest of the agenda. It's my sincere hope. All right, we are back. Nikki, take us to the next application.
Next, we have 68 Shell Drive, Katama Point LLC, map 14K, parcel W50, SC 10-3466, continuance of the hearing for relocation of existing dwelling and barn, construction of a new dwelling within land subject to coastal storm flowage. And I believe David Clark is here.
Yep, we did get revised plans showing the slight shift in the size and location of the master suite so that it saves the oak and the pitch pine that we had been concerned about. So that's now on the plan. That's good. And David, I'm going to let you walk us through the revisions to your plan to show the locations and volume of the proposed fill.
For the record, David Clark, Clark Engineering. So the most recent revised plan shows that northerly addition being pulled back to save that oak tree. The previous meeting, I did present a site plan that shows profiles and the volume of fill that is required in the 3 locations where we're proposing fill. And I did submit yesterday morning just an enhanced plan showing the shaded area where the fill is proposed around the house. I think Commissioner Rawls requested that. So really, those are the only changes to the site plan. Again, moving that addition, master suite addition on the northwest corner of the house back to save the oak tree, and defining the fill area for the house.
Okay, thank you. So I thought that the fill was primarily at this point for the driveway, to elevate that to allow for passage, emergency vehicles and whatnot. So is the part of the Shell Drive that's not shown with any fill on it is already at an adequate elevation, or is that just off the site? So that, is that going to create a mismatch in elevations?
No, so on Shell Drive itself, where you see the end of the shaded area, that is where we're matching existing grade.
Okay, so it won't cause any change. And why is fill shown in the area of the guest cottage? Does that need to be elevated for some reason?
It does. It has to be elevated to meet the building code, because the proposal is to use that as guest quarters. So the first floor has to be 1 foot above the floodplain elevation. And that area is generally rising in slope anyway. So although the area is shaded, there's no significant amount of fill there. It's just regrading.
Madam Chair, Bill Riley.
Yes, Mr. Riley, go ahead.
The last time we were together, and I mentioned, in addition to the applicant wanting to fill, that it would be useful for emergency vehicles. You asked if I had consulted with the fire department, and I had not. I have since then had a lengthy discussion with Chief DePasquale, and he asked me to make it clear that the fire department will get to any property that's flooded, whether there's fill or no fill, or they'll use high water vehicles or boats or whatever. But he did say that being able to drive to the property and turn around without being in flood waters is preferable. That's the word he allowed me to use, preferable.
Okay, okay. I'm sure it is. All right, thanks for that.
Well, Teresa is with us, I believe, and I wonder if I don't know if she made any changes to her plans.
Hi, good afternoon. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flex Design on behalf of Joe Giacconi. Really, our plans mainly entailed shifting the shift to the architecture, so shifting that master bedroom so that we're able to protect that really large healthy oak and the pitch pine. We did make a note on the eastern property line that we were going to transplant the small cedars to allow for the grading. That has to be done in that east to create that berm on the eastern property line. And then the only thing we did was to clarify that there was a question about trees not matching up in our planting schedule. So we have clarified in the notes that we have 17 native trees, witch hazel, eastern red cedar, and white oak. And we are proposing one not native to Massachusetts, silver maple, as part of the landscape planting. So it is native to the eastern part of the country, but is not native to Massachusetts. It's naturalized here. So we have noted that on the plan so that those, to clarify the tree counts that were a little unclear last time.
Okay.
So we have 19 trees being removed, 17 or 18 being replaced, and 797 native shrubs, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Right. Just to clarify for butters.
Got it. Okay, we need that finding. Yes, Mr. Riley.
I would just ask, because it's been a while since our last meeting, if perhaps Teresa could kind of go over the area numbers. What's the area of the work being done, and just kind of run over the numbers once again for the members of the commission.
Yes, I can do that. Just give me one moment to pull up our land management plan.
I will say that most of the new members of the commission will not be able to vote on this because we've had so many hearings on it. And they're only allowed to miss one and still be able to vote. So
okay,
we'll see.
So we're looking at restoring a total of 34,700 square.
Connected to the wrong TV.
Oh. Go ahead, Teresa. Everybody please mute. Reminder.
So the total area of restoration mitigation is 34,700 square feet, where we will be removing invasive vegetation and then replanting naturalized native vegetation, and we'll also be removing lawn and planting native vegetation in that area.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. So just to review one last time. So the total amount of the fill that's going in for different purposes. Last time we checked, it was about, what do I have it right? 3,200. Is that about? Do we have an exact figure?
Dave Clark.
Yes.
Hold on one second. I just got to find my plan. And if I can circle back to you on that,
Okay.
Just got to open up the plan and.
Okay. I just need to have it for a finding. Other questions or comments from commissioners on these changes? Yes, Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, my questions have to do with I see on the planting plan, the green areas, and we have a pretty good idea what's going on there. Foundation plantings, though, around the dwelling and the pool and the deck, some of which, some small portion of it, which is in the NDZ, but pretty much the rest of it's within the outer R. Please fill us in. If I don't recall us talking about that before, if you have, my apologies for not remembering it.
Yes, so we had submitted that previously, the landscape plan. We have two plant schedules on our planting plan. One is the plant schedule for the conservation, which would be the mitigation, restoration planting. And then we have a plant schedule for the landscape. So our trees that we're proposing in the general landscape are silver maple, eastern redbud, and eastern red cedar. The shrubs are a mix of native vegetation, mainly clethra, deervella, and inkberry, holly, bayberry, physocarpus, Carolina rose, and viburnums. We are proposing a couple of hydrangea paniculatas, little lime paniculata hydrangeas, which are panicle hydrangeas, which are going to be located around the front door. The ground cover layer will be planted with mainly native herbaceous vegetation, switchgrass, baptisia, agastache, eupatorium. The only non-native plant we're proposing is some Walker's Low catmint, again, right around the foundation at the entrance to the house.
Okay. Did you have in your application an estimate of the percentage of native to non-natives in the foundation plantings?
No, I can give you that. We're talking about 9 catmint plants, and the panicle hydrangeas, we're talking 2. So we've got 9 herbaceous and 2 shrubs that are not native, and the rest are all native.
Okay. And what about the area that's totally within the NDZ?
The area that is totally within the NDZ, within the 50-foot buffer, is native vegetation.
Okay. All right. That's all that I think I have, at least for the moment. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Other questions or comments?
David Clark here. I got the chart in front of me.
Okay.
So your question is, what's the net increase within your jurisdiction of site coverage?
There's the volume of the fill.
Volume of the fill.
Okay. So for the house, the volume of fill is 2,800 cubic yards, sorry. And then for the northerly berm, the total amount of fill is 320 cubic yards, and the easterly berm is 150 cubic yards.
Okay, so my recollection of being right around 3,000, 3,200 is about right. So
yes.
Okay. Have you 12, 3270? Yeah. When is your next trip to the zoning board?
Well, Madam Chair, so our next trip, which is our only trip, because I don't have a calendar in front of me, but it's the second meeting in June. So
okay.
I think it's the 28th.
Okay.
24, it looks like.
June 24th. I don't have at home, so I don't have my laptop is busy and my phone is busy, and so I can't look at a calendar.
Yeah.
How bad?
Yeah, I totally understand that. I struggle with that too. Okay, just wanted to know where that was in relation to our schedule. Any other questions or comments? All right. I guess this is probably ready then to continue to the work session July 7th. We have received everything we've asked for, and I think we have.
I agree. Madam Chair, I agree. Just want to make sure that we understand all, if there are any, objections to the project, so we can see where the commission's coming out. That's all.
Okay, well, I'm happy to do a quick poll to ask the question whether commission members feel, those who are eligible to vote on this, feel that this is approvable with conditions.
So that would be.
Okay. Bob Rawls?
Yeah, I would say that it is approvable with conditions.
Okay. Bob Delvecchio?
Yes.
Okay, Joe was not here for the beginning of this. Tom?
Yes.
And I would be a yes. I think Terry and Karen probably, I don't know, I have to look at their dates, whether they're going to be eligible, because this goes back, this started in January, I think.
Yeah, I'm early February.
Oh, then you probably only missed one hearing, so you might be, what would you be?
I don't have a problem.
Okay. There you have it. We're going to do our best to impose conditions that make sense.
for us, and we will look forward to reviewing that on July the 7th at the work session.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Let's have a roll call vote then for 68 Shell Drive to July the 7th. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Pitts.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye. That's unanimous. See you back here on July the 7th.
Thank you.
So you'll need a letter from Nikki that we just took a straw poll to tell. She'll be able to write that then.
Yeah, great. Thank you very
Okay.
much, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you.
I know.
All right. Moving on.
All right, we have 44 Cedar Street, Robert and Kristen Tishman. The Kristen R. Tishman 1998 Family Trust, map 13C, parcel 42-12, SE 10-3493, reconstruction of an existing elevated walkway and access stairs.
Yes, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Good morning.
Thank
Good
you.
afternoon.
Good morning, Madam Chair and the board. For the record, this is Mark Burgess of Shorefront Consulting. We went through one hearing for this project already, and there were some questions that the board had. I submitted a pretty thorough letter, revised plan submission letter. The short story is that changing the project in any way would have resulted in going back to the zoning board, and the applicant did not want to do that. So by reconstructing this elevated walkway exactly in accordance with the plans and the order of condition and the license that were already approved and issued for the project, he can still accomplish his goal of extending the current stairs landward to where they were supposed to be. We're going to raise it up to the height according to the plan. For some reason, it's a little bit lower. And when it's all done, it will match all of the permits and plans that it was originally permitted under. So in essence, we've reduced the project to nothing more than a reconstruction and the work to reconstruct an existing permitted catwalk exactly per the existing permits. There were some questions about the marsh. I asked the owner. It's just the marsh has always been a little thin there, and he doesn't really intend on doing anything with the erosion, which I guess he just wants to leave it natural. But he is concerned that he does need to extend it landward so he can get there. And then, of course, we removed the bluestone steps from the project as well. So it's all the way back to nothing more than the work to rebuild it, and that's it. And I will shut up now and address any questions.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Okay, I think on the marsh question, we will likely put in a provision in the order that requires them to monitor that marsh in and around and underneath the catwalk and take any action that is required if it begins to show signs of decline. So we'll ask them to, submit photographic evidence before the project and then annually through the monitoring period to show what the condition of it is. And along with that, through the reading that we've all been doing about catwalks and their impact on the marine environment, we think I know you said that you were hoping to do it all by hand and without the need for jetting. And I think we will probably put in a provision that says that if you determine that jetting is required for any reason, that you're going to have to go to the agent for her determination about whether jetting is going to be allowed. And then she'll have the discretion to turn that question to the commission if she feels that would require a vote of the commission to allow that. Just because some of us have learned a lot about the impacts of jetting. So those are fairly standard conditions. Let me see if anybody else has any comments, questions, or suggestions for conditions to add in here.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I just wanted, since it's a reconstruction, I assume then that everything's going to be made from wood. Is that correct?
Yes, it's exactly the way it was originally permitted.
Okay, and the other thing that concerned me, if I remember correctly, there was a gap or a break in space between where the catwalk starts and the bank, there was some erosion that's created like a space making it difficult. Am I understanding that correctly, or are you going to, and if so, are you going to deal with that in some manner?
Well, the whole reason for the project was to address that erosion. So the erosion is worked back to the beginning of the catwalk. There's no gap there right now.
Okay.
Or at least the last time I was there. So they can walk from the lawn. They don't have to jump onto it yet. But, you know, the whole reason was to resolve that situation. So by putting in the rest of the catwalk and the stairs and landings that were previously approved, we get the landward extension we were looking for. It just wasn't there to begin with. And he would rather leave the erosion to continue to occur naturally. That might help keep the beach high enough so that the marsh stays there. And then, you know, there's all kinds of reasons why marsh might be thin in some areas. There could be clay under the soil. You know, that's a good size hill that the house is built on. There could be clay underneath, and you've got fresh water coming out, which changes the salinity. There's no way to know, but he said it's been there. It's been like that ever since he's owned the property. And I looked back at some Google Earth aerials, and I see an indentation there, you know, all the time. I just don't have an explanation for it, but he just wants to leave it natural.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Any other questions, comments, suggestions for the order? Hearing none. Is there...
I do have one.
Go ahead. You made it just under the
Just,
deadline.
yeah, I know. Just so it'll be okay for us to have a condition that no through flow is going to be used on the project, I assume.
I was hoping that wasn't going to come up.
Because I thought your answer to Tom's question indicated that it would not be used.
I understand that. You're right. With the exception, and I failed to mention, with the exception of that the wooden steps, the public access steps, would be changed to through flow. The reason for that request is because the through flow has much better traction. Those wooden steps get inundated with salt water every tide. Plus, it's on North Shore, so it's facing North Shore, so it's a little more shaded. The steps get grungy and algae and very slippery. So this is more of a safety issue that they wanted the steps. The water, of course, flows in and out and under the steps very well, and they're not really baking in the sun like we've talked about in previous hearings. So I would still request that the through flow just for the steps be allowed for safety reasons.
Noted. It does seem, though, and I will say that when you see the use of graded aluminum, that is typically for ramps that go to docks and catwalks, etc. So I'm a little surprised that you didn't consider that to be appropriate for that use case there.
Well, aluminum, there's two kinds of aluminum ramps that I've looked at, and they were aluminum ramps for docks and things. One version is solid aluminum with little ridges on it, which are good for traction. And the other kind of walkway has kind of aluminum 2x6s, let's say, that the decking structure is made out of. The aluminum grating, at least in my research, was not barefoot friendly. It was designed for industrial applications, and I know that a previous project had some discussions on this. We also said that, and I provided this data to the commission, that of all of the structures that I have permitted in the last 10 years anyway, that I went back and looked at them, and the grading was just as good as the day it was put in. There simply is no data to suggest that this particular material is harmful in this environment, and that the safety concerns for me far outweigh any potential for undocumented degradation into the environment.
Well, I mean, you already know that I disagree with that.
I know,
but because it will degrade eventually. Anyway, for this particular case, and I guess it's a relatively short stretch. I can see your argument, but I'm happy that it's not being used on the catwalk itself until we can sort this issue out.
I understand. I appreciate that.
Any other questions or comments? All right, is there a motion then to continue 44 Cedar Street to July 7th work session?
I move to continue to July, what is it, July
7th
work session.
Clark, second.
Roll call vote for 44 Cedar Street. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Kitts.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye. That's unanimous. We'll see you back here on July the 7th for an order.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question about jetting?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, I agree with you that I think that jetting versus either a permanent stub pile or just a permanent structure is a far better way to go. Chatham has got a ton of seasonal docks, and I can tell you, the only way you're putting these things in, they're prefab sections. So if you try to pound them, you're just going to split them to pieces. The only way to put them in is the jet. And I know it's been going on for many, many, many years, and maybe there's a way to address it. My opinion is stub piles are the answer, and we initially proposed that here, but with the difficulties in the extra permitting and time involved, the applicant didn't want to do it. So if there is a way for you guys on the zoning board to work together to say, look, if we just convert these seasonal docks and structures to stub piles, we all win, but keep it simple,
Yep. Well, I
know we would appreciate that.
You're the one who brought it to our attention that there is, from an environmental perspective anyway, a solution. And we've been looking at that more carefully, and I think I take your point about talking to the zoning board so that we can move forward on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Maybe they can do something like Chapter 91 does. It's a minor project modification. You guys are familiar with those.
Yep.
That would be a way to keep their record straight and move forward.
Yep.
Okay.
Right.
Well, good luck with all of that.
It is preferable. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Nikki, we're ready to move on.
All right, we're going to open the next two together, I assume is what they like. 263 Woodland Way Nominee Trust, William Litchfield, trustee, map 11K, parcel HC49, SC10-3486, and 237 Woodland Way. Again, same owners, map 11K, parcel HC48, SC10-3487. And these were for the demolition of the existing dwelling, construction of a new dwelling and swimming pool, plantings, and demolition of the existing swimming pool. And I'll leave it to David Clark, I believe.
Thank you very much, David Clark, on behalf of the Gitman family. We've gone to Zoning Board of Appeals and received approval. So the last few items, I believe, is the additional request by the commission regarding mitigation for the trees to be removed, as well as having a second look at the vegetated buffer strip along the top of the bank. And Katrine is here from Wilkinson Ecological, and Dave Hawk is here to discuss both the restoration plan and the landscape plan.
Okay. Go ahead, Katrine.
Okay, good afternoon. Katrine Higgins from Wilkinson Ecological Design, for the record. So as Dave just said, we heard your comments in the last hearing. We submitted a revised plan dated 5/28/2021. And as a result, we have taken what was already a very strong mitigation plan, and we've just simply made it even stronger and more robust. So just to review some of the changes that we are now showing on our plan. First, we're now proposing to plant 40 trees, as you can see on the plan, in addition to the 13 trees along the western property line of number 237, We're now showing 5 trees to be planted in the middle of the mitigation area, just landward of the proposed pathway. And we're also showing 10 trees to be planted now on number 263, including white spruce, white pine, eastern red cedar, and oak. So 40 trees to be planted in total. Secondly, the condition of the existing salt marsh was raised in the previous hearing, and perhaps it would be most appropriate to include the same condition which the chair just noted the commission would be requiring for the elevated walkway at 44 Cedar Street. So monitoring for the salt marsh in that area. And we'd be happy to do that. And then lastly, our plan now shows an expanded vegetated buffer on 263. As you can see, we've increased that buffer so that it's 15 feet wide, closest to the stairway right there in the center of that area. And it thickens, as I kind of discussed in the last hearing, it thickens to be much wider in other areas, 35 feet where we're showing the grouping of Carolina Rose, and even beyond that to the full 50-foot wide buffer to be naturalized in other areas. So the result of this on both properties is that the 0 to 50 buffer will be, the expanded buffer will result in the fact that 72% of the 0 to 50 buffer will be fully naturalized on these properties, which I believe is quite significant. So our proposed work, just to summarize our proposal here, we're proposing invasive plant removal, lawn removal, and restoration planting, including the 40 trees that I mentioned. This work spans over 16,000 square feet now with that expanded vegetated buffer. And it's really focused on that robust vegetated buffer within the no disturb zone. And as I mentioned, now that's covering 72% of the no disturb zone. This work will certainly provide enhanced habitat for wildlife, and it will also improve the stormwater function on both of these properties. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
All right, let's open it up to questions, commission members.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, on 263, there's a corner of the pool area that is out into the no disturb zone. I was wondering, has that been changed at all, or is that still as is?
That is still as is.
Okay. And did I understand you correctly? You're going to monitor the salt marsh?
Correct. We'd like to include that in the annual monitoring that would take place, that more typically focuses on the mitigation area. So in addition to the mitigation area, we would review the salt marsh area.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
That's all I had.
All right, thank you. Other questions, other comments, other requests?
Yes, I got Bob Rawls. I guess there's also part of this is an after the fact approval for what I call a viewing platform.
Yes, sorry, I didn't mention that at the beginning. That was one of the requests that the commission made, is to either have evidence that it was constructed prior to 1978 or included in the application. So from the town's GIS information, there has been a structure there since at least 1990, so 31 years. And no evidence was found at the building department of a building permit ever being pulled for it. That is not unusual in that decks that are not attached to a structure really don't fall under the building code because it's not a form of egress or to the structure. So given that it was there prior to 1990, I am not surprised that there's no evidence at the building department. So what I have done, but it is obvious looking at the materials out there that it was reconstructed within the last 20 years. So I have included as part of the notice of intent the fee and the additional work as an after the fact filing of reconstructing the deck that was there.
So, Janet, would that be a separate approval item, or would that just be bundled in with however we vote on this NOI?
Well, we normally vote to approve a project as proposed, including any revisions to the project that are made. That said, we can specifically exclude, or the applicant can withdraw particular elements. Both of those have been done before.
So I guess we need a discussion on the deck. So I don't know what to think about it. I mean, I'm just going to get off for a minute and think.
Okay. Other reactions from other members about this deck that it's been there, it's not permitted. Yep, there it is. And it was reconstructed clearly because it's newer than that. Bob Delvecchio, you have your hand up. Are you speaking to the deck or some other?
Yes. Since it is there and it's on the coastal bank, I was wondering if any plantings could go in around it just to kind of shore up the earth around it to make sure no erosion takes place around it.
Yeah, we certainly could do that. Things like little blue stem plugs of grasses would probably be the most appropriate right along the edge there, and even some more shade tolerant species that would probably grow farther, in towards the underneath the deck.
Okay, I think that's maybe a compromise in my mind, because I know that there's a footing by the first step when you enter the deck, the concrete footing of some kind that maybe you could plant around that as well. So that's a good compromise in my mind. Thank you.
Other reactions?
This is Nikki. I agree with Bob Delvecchio that plantings, in my mind, would offset the past construction of the deck. I don't see that it's causing a ton of harm to the resource area at this point. Removal will be more disturbing than just adding some plantings to offset it. So that's where I would stand as well.
What's under the deck at the moment? Is it just bare earth? I can't remember. I know I looked.
Well, I trust Katrine's group to do whatever's appropriate. If
Okay.
they feel that they can get some plantings under it on the low side, that certainly can be done.
Okay, or whatever, so that there's no problem with erosion spreading from under that location and going further down the bank. Okay. Bob, does that help you?
Yeah, I think Nikki has the right attitude, is that it's no harm to the resource area after all this time. So why take it out? Yep,
and if it's properly mitigated for with plantings around it and erosion is prevented, then it's not
correct.
It's not harming. Any other questions or comments from members on Woodland Way? Hearing none, is there a motion to continue this to July 7th work session for an order of conditions?
Move to continue to July 7th for work session.
Clark, second.
All right, roll call vote to continue 263 and 237 Woodland Way to July the 7th. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Pitts.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye, so that's unanimous. Thank you all very much for all of the
presentations you've done and your listening to us and being willing to revise and get this to a place where we can approve it. Appreciate all that effort. See you back here on the 7th.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Much. All right, Nikki.
All right, we have 83 Siegel Road, 30 Wikis Way, 0 to Squatum Road, 27, 59, 75, and 97 to Lippy Run. This is all for dredging and sand placement. Charlie is going to somewhat briefly, hopefully, explain his case on how he wants to continue proceed with this project.
Charlie, you're muted if you're starting to speak. Uh-oh. This is not a good sign. Let's, he may have stepped, let's give him the benefit of the doubt that he may have stepped away and circle back. Oh,
he raised his hand.
Oh, wait, is he calling in? There he is.
He raised his hand.
Okay. Charlie, he's still muted though.
Yeah.
Maybe I can't unmute him. If there's a problem with your audio, Charlie, maybe you could call in.
While we're waiting to do that, we can move on real quick to 24 and 2.
Let us know when your audio is working and we'll get right back to you. Let's move on to Seapine.
All right, so that will be 233 Seapine Road, Richard Tozzi Jr., map 12K, parcel HC 130, SE 10-3495, construction of patios.
David Clark Engineering. First of all, I apologize for the late submittal of the plans. I think we got them in there last Friday.
Hi, this is Charlie.
Oh, wait, hang on. We have Charlie, but just barely. So David, can you hang on for just a few minutes while we give Charlie the floor to... Charlie, can you hear me?
Yes, can you guys hear me? I'm very sorry about that. Through the Microsoft Teams, I can't talk through my computer for some reason, and I've been listening to on my cell, and I unmuted it on my cell, and for some reason, it still wasn't working. So sorry about that, and sorry for any inconvenience there.
That's okay. So, Charlie and I had a conversation. I think he had one with Nicole too last week, trying to explain a little bit of the background. If you can, we have not brought the other members of the commission up to date on the explanation that you provided for why this has sort of lurched around for over a year. But if you can do that really briefly, we would appreciate that.
Well, in short, what we're looking for here is one final continuance to a date certain in mid-September, wherever that would fit the calendar. And the briefest description, if I can go into more detail if needed, hopefully not. This is for an after-the-fact filing to follow up for some emergency dredging that was completed in March of 2020. We filed within 30 days of completion of the dredging. And upon our filing, it was right when the COVID crisis kind of hit its, well, maybe not its peak, but it was right after the emergency order was issued. So only essential hearings were heard. So this hearing was postponed indefinitely. And it was first heard in October of 2020, where it was continued out to revise the plans. And after that point, during the revision of the plans, it was determined by Outermost that they wanted to do some maintenance dredging. So we decided to wait on doing an updated survey until after their maintenance dredging was completed. And that was the reason for the continuances up to April 5th. And then our continuance letter that we submitted on April 26th for a hearing to this date today would have been able to been completed on time. However, April 27th, a day after that letter was submitted, we were doing some work with our vessel out in Yarmouth actually, and our motor basically blew up on us. And it took a few weeks to diagnose the issue with the motor, and it turned out that we needed a new motor. And right now, unfortunately, due to COVID-19 and all the shutdowns, there's very limited inventory, which has pushed us back. And had we known that information on the date of April 26th, or the hearing that or the hearing after that on May 12th, the previous hearing where this project was discussed, we would have been able to suggest a date of mid-September here. So overall, this project has been continued several times, originally due to the COVID-19 directly, and now indirectly due to COVID-19. And now that we have the information of when the survey vessel will be ready, and we also purchased a new vessel, which is almost ready to go now to conduct hydrographic surveys with. We should be able to complete the survey in mid-July, and mid-September would give us plenty of time to finalize our submission and close this hearing out once and for all. And I do apologize for the numerous continuances that were requested on our end, and it was due to some uncertainties related to when the vessel would be ready, which again has resulted from the COVID-19 crisis, which has obviously been very difficult for a lot of reasons.
All right. Thank you, Charlie. Heard that. What else besides the survey, what needs to be revised and updated so that the commission can make a decision on this application?
Yeah, so it'll be an updated survey. The latest survey that was shown on the plan was actually completed before the emergency dredging, which is well out of date now. And as you know, and as some of the commission members that have been around for a couple of years know from my presentations, this is a very dynamic site. And after dredging is obviously a big change to the contouring. That's the whole purpose of dredging, to change the contours out there. The survey will need to be updated, and as well as the original set of plans included an expansion of 2 of the disposal areas below mean high water, and that was in front of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife site, as well as the Quinnesset Beach site. There was some back and forth on that one, and during the hearing in October, and we have taken another look at it, and just for the sake of closing out the after the fact notice of intent and consolidating all of the various permits, we decided to remove the expansion of those disposal areas. So this project essentially doesn't permit anything that hasn't been permitted in the past, either by in order of conditions, amendments to any order of conditions, or the after the fact notice of intent.
So then there's no need for a revision or a new plan for disposal areas. They are as they were before the after the fact filing?
That's correct. I do plan to show everything that has been permitted on a full set of plans that just shows as an overview of just what's permitted and what the locations of what's permitted are. That was a recommendation from Callie, so that would be included with filing. And then page 2 would include some of the finer details, which would include the updated hydrographic survey.
Okay. Well, you know, you've heard me say this more times than I'm happy about saying, but okay, one last one. And the reason is, I'll tell you, Charlie, that because you now have stepped up and showed up, you know, and you talked to Nicole and you talked to me, and now you've talked to everybody to explain all the various issues and problems that you ran into trying to get this done. We still think it's a necessary project. We do think consolidation of all of these permits is the right way to go. So the survey will be updated. All the plans showing all of the approved disposal sites will all be updated. So we'll have a full set of all current materials before us before we reconvene in September to make a decision on this, right?
That's correct. And I do really appreciate that, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the commission taking the time to meet today and go through that process.
Okay.
And I want to apologize for the delay on this one. It's just been very difficult timing with everything going on to have the everything that went on around this project with COVID.
Yeah, we get that. It's just, it's helpful as you're going through that, though, when you're experiencing those difficulties and unforeseen, challenges, to keep us apprised and tell us what's going on. When we don't hear and we don't know and we just get a request for a continuance, we don't have any reason to say yes to it. So at this point we do. And I'll say for the final time, this is the last one. So I suggest we have a date open of September 22nd. That we continue it to that date. That gives you the whole summer to get the survey work done, get all the plans updated, get everything updated into us in early September, so that we can have a full hearing on it on September 22nd.
That would work great for us. And again, I appreciate that very much.
All right. Is there a motion then to give one final continuance to September the 22nd?
I don't know if I can bring myself to say one final continuance, but one final continuance to September 22nd.
I know, I've said it too many times.
Clark will second it, recognizing that it's highly unlikely that this will be the last time.
Well, we're gonna hope. Well, Charlie has already agreed, and maybe we'll remind him with a letter about the agreement that if anything goes, if it doesn't make it by September 22nd, they will have to withdraw and refile a new application. So.
We will. We will have a new application set of plans submitted by the 2 weeks before the September, whatever the filing deadline is, for the 22nd, I guess a week before that. Yep. I guess at the hearing, if something comes up, that may be the only extenuating circumstance there.
If anything comes up, you're starting over again from square one. This application has to come to an end on September 22nd.
Okay.
All right, so roll call vote then. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Pitts.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye. That's unanimous. This will continue to September 22nd. I'm not even sure my spreadsheet goes that far out. All right, thank you, Charlie. We will see you here then.
That's right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Now back to Sea Pine, which we've already read. So, David, you had started your review of what's been changed.
Yes, so at the last meeting, the commission asked for the portion of the patio to be removed from the no disturb zone, and additional information regarding the mitigation plantings and a work protocol for work on the bank. And I believe all that information has been submitted. I'd be happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you. Short and to the point. Questions from commission members or comments on this revision? Bob Rawls, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I see that the plan says that the existing non-native planting bed along the property line between the house and the water will be replaced with natives, so that I think that's what it's saying. So if we have an order of conditions to that effect, it's not an issue.
That's correct. I had a discussion with Brad Holmes last week about the existing planting beds, and that they can't have bark mulch to be considered mitigation. So it's my understanding that the proposal is that those areas, the bark mulch will be removed and the non-natives and planted with natives.
Very good. So we can have the order state such,
yes.
And we'll be
yes.
good. Okay. All right.
Yep.
I think that's all the only thing I was griping about before.
Okay. Anybody else? Any final questions? Any requests for conditions? Any final concerns?
I had one question.
Go ahead, Tom.
I discussed this briefly with the owner but I'm still concerned about the intrusion, although it's relatively modest, into the NDZ of the improvements that are on the eastern end of the building, or the proposed patio, kitchen, and fire pit. I was wondering if they had given any more thought to doing something to relocate it somewhat, or ameliorate or abate the intrusion in some way.
Tom, that's
It
all
was
been
pulled
pulled.
out.
Yeah,
Yep,
sorry.
it's now behind the 50-foot line.
Oh, it is? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
This
Far
is,
out.
this is plan dated 6/4/21. Pulled the patio back, heard you clearly, and pulled it all back behind the 50-foot line.
Oh, I didn't, okay. Well,
You don't have that version? Yeah.
no, I didn't get that version, and I should have confirmed by looking in the Dropbox. So, thank you.
Okay, yep. They heard you before, so that's good. Anybody else? Bob Delvecchio, you had your hand up as you pulled it down, is that?
Yeah, I just had a question about the paving material. Is that going to be pervious, David?
Yeah, dry laid natural stone.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or suggestions or requests? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to continue this to the July 7th work session?
Move to continue to July 7th work session.
Clark, second.
Roll call vote for 233 Sea Pine Road. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Kitts. You're muted, Joe. Give me. You're unmuted now. Go ahead. Aye, I see it. Okay. Clark,
Aye.
Latin,
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye as well. That's unanimous. We'll take this for an order of conditions on July the 7th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I just wanted to briefly mention, I meant to do this at the very beginning. If anyone's staying around for the filing fee discussion, we're probably not having it today, really. I need to redraft some of the stuff based on some discussions I've had. So if you're staying on for that, you can leave. And then
We'll be continuing the discussion on Taylor's Pond as well. They'll both be continued, I guess, to the 23rd of June.
Yep.
Yep, okay.
So
All
next we have
right.
24 and
We have the next one.
24 and 2 Salt Pond Road, Edward and Cheryl Acton and Gerald Milden, map 17J, parcels 2 and 4, SE 10-3485. They have requested a continuance to July 14th, 2021. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it was, they're dealing with another board. So they want to come to us after that. So
Okay.
just looking for a motion for that one.
All right, is there a motion?
Move to continue to, was it July 14th?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Clark, second.
All right, roll call vote for Salt Pond Road. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Kitts,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Latin,
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye. That's continued to July the 14th. All right, getting near the end here. That's
All right, now we have
Good.
34
ahead.
Nickerson Lane, James and Brenda Sears. These are requests for certificate of compliance that we're on now. Map 7B, parcel 42-S18, construction of a shed. I went out to the property Monday or Tuesday, and it was constructed as proposed, and I recommend approval.
Okay. Questions? Motion?
Move to approve the order condition, or certificate of compliance, I mean.
Clark, second.
Roll call vote for certificate for 34 Nickerson Lane. Commissioner Rawls,
Aye.
Delvecchio,
Aye.
Kitts,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Latin,
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye. That's approved. Okay.
Next we have 114 Cranberry Lane, Eric Bednarik, map 15J, parcel 18. That was a new dwelling, guest house, pool, and patio. If you looked in the Dropbox, you saw a bunch of pictures, how it's, well vegetated. Blue Flax is continuing to monitor and do invasive removals, and they've been, they've already paid to have Blue Flax continue work out there. So I recommend approval for that one as well.
Okay, questions? Motion?
Move to approve the certificate.
Clark, second.
Roll call vote for 114 Cranberry Lane. Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Pitts.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye. That's unanimously approved.
Okay, and then next we have 105 Orleans Road. Sorry, let me just pull up the other copy of the agenda. Madeline Gifford, map 15H, parcel 2-L2 SE10-485. That's for dwelling, and you can tell by the low SE number that it's very old, from 1985. I was 6 months old. And so this is just a property transfer that came up showing that they hadn't gotten a certificate of compliance. Back then there wasn't really any conditions, no requirements for as-built, any of that stuff. The house is there, so, and I recommend approval.
Okay.
Move to, oh, well, sorry.
Yep, go ahead. Yeah,
Move to approve.
Okay.
Clark, second for
Right.
issuing the COC.
Yep, roll call for COC for 105 Orleans Road. Commissioner Rawls.
Aye.
Delvecchio.
Aye.
Pitts.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Latin.
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
I vote aye. That one's approved as well.
All right, and then we have 110 Old Saltworks Road, Goodrich Chatham Realty Trust, map 13M, parcel C25, SE10-3263. This is an extension request for a new dwelling and associated site improvements.
You want to do both of these together? Do you want to read the other one?
Yeah, that's fine with me. 110 and 0 Old Saltworks Road, Goodrich Chatham Realty Trust and Eastward Point Property Owners Association, map 13M, parcels C25 and C24, SE10-3216, and this is for shorefront protection. And just a heads up, that one, the Eastward Point Property Owners Association has been in contact with us. I'm not sure what's changed since they originally approved this application, but the association now has concerns on what responsibility they'll have with this order of conditions. Again, I don't know what's changed, that they weren't concerned they were on it before and they are now.
Yeah.
Applications stay with the property, so whoever owns the property is ultimately responsible for what goes on that property, regardless of who actually applied. And again, conservation commissions don't, by approving things, we don't necessarily say that we agree with property lines. We don't deal with that kind of stuff. We approve projects, not, we don't get involved with property disputes. So I just wanted to put that out there in case the property owners were listening, which I think she said she was going to, but
I believe Sean is here and has her hand up, and we'll get to her in a moment. But Sean is also here. What's up with the project, Sean?
Yep, no, this is just for ongoing maintenance of the fiber rolls. So there's fiber rolls that are on the beach there that, we keep covered with sand, and part of the order of conditions is to do monitoring reports and keep it covered with the sand. Nothing has changed from the order of conditions that was issued in 2018. It's just that it's going to be expiring, and we're looking to extend it to maintain, coverage over the fiber rolls and the resource area. So there hasn't been any changes to that. I'm not quite sure if there's a representative from the association that has questions. I'd be glad to answer them.
And what about the other order, 3263 for the dwelling? What is that?
Yep, no, that's just, they're completing actually, they've got the house just about done. They're applying for the occupancy permit. and it's just coming up to expire next month. And they've still got the landscape work to do. We just came, Nikki looked at the landscape plan that Genic Studio, Crawford Land Management put together, and they're looking to do all the plantings and the mitigation plantings. So they just need a little more time to complete that.
And as we always say, we're happy to give extra time for mitigation plans. The longer period of time for survival, the better. Okay, someone's here, KB is here with a hand raised.
I am.
Yes, hello. Can you
Hi.
identify yourself,
Thank
please?
you. I appreciate a few minutes after this very, very long meeting you've had. I did not have the opportunity to talk to Nikki yesterday. I just want to clarify.
What is your name, please? I just need to get you down for the record.
Kim Burst.